Deku had one for all, but he bond with the lying Venom Symbiote. Can Venom awaken his monster inside of him and take control over Izuku?
Let's find out in this video, so please leave a like, share and subscribe, so you can enjoy more videos like this, and I have Patreon where I upload this for early access for free. So join my Patreon link in description. Dagoba Beach still smelled like rust and old rain, but it was finally a beach again. The scrap hills I'd cleared with all might were reduced to wrinkled ridges of bottle caps and twisted wire, the sort of mess that fits in a trash bag instead of a crane's jaw. The tide came in soft and glassy. Seagulls screamed like hecklers. I rolled my shoulders, feeling the weight of one for all like a sleeping tiger under my skin. No more fractures with every punch, no more guessing games, just controlled power. That was the plan. Mature hero. No notebooks. No muttering to myself until people worry. Just breathe in, measure the world, make the right call. Something out in the surf glinted, metal. A cylinder, bobbing and turning as if it wanted to be found. I waded in, water soaking my sneakers, and caught it with a quick lash of Blackwhip. No, not Blackwhip yet, I hadn't manifested that. Muscle memory still reached, though, so my hand snapped out with perfect timing and the cylinder smacked into my palm. A rusty company logo ran down the side, half sanded off by grit. The lid had vent slats, and beneath them, something black and alive pushed against the slits like tar with a heartbeat. My chest did that tight ache thing it does before I do something reckless. I lifted the cylinder toward the sunlight. The tar swelled. The vents popped. It moved. It didn't just spill out, it chose me. The black mass sprang, silent and quick, a ribbon of night that slapped across my wrist, shot under my sleeve, and streaked up my arm. I staggered back. The tide kissed my ankles. Every instinct in me shouted, move, but one for all whispered, hold. The thing halted at my shoulder, testing the territory. Cold as a fresh bruise. It pressed against my neck. Then spread thin across my skin, tasting my pulse like a doctor without gloves. A voice unfurled in my head. Hungry. I froze. Ah, hello. Hungry, it repeated, then, more complicated, you are strong. We can be strong together. Then we can eat the bad ones. A pulse of satisfaction. And maybe chocolate. Mostly bad ones. Then chocolate. I looked down. The mass had formed thin tendrils across my forearm. Like living ink following veins. It left my palm free, as if it expected me to fight and wanted a good grip. In my periphery, the metal cylinder hissed, salt water eating electronics, and sank. What are you? I asked. We are what you need, it said. We are armor. We are teeth. We are the part of you that bites back. A pause, curious, almost shy. We are Venom. Venom. The name landed with too much gravity. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It felt strange introducing myself to something living on my skin, but I've met stranger now. I'm trying to be a hero. Hero. The word rolled in the shared space like a pebble in a mouth. Hero means rules. We hate rules. But the tendrils flexed, and a warm hum pushed into my shoulder, basking in the power sleeping there. We like this. The spark. It tastes like thunder. We could break the sky with it. No breaking skies, I said. And no, eating the bad ones. It sulked, a prickly shrug along my collarbone. We will consider your no-eating rule. On a trial basis. With snacks. Footsteps crunched behind me. I didn't turn. All Might's silhouette stretched across the sand, tall even when the late sun cut him into golden shadow. Young Midoriya, he said, voice warm. Then cooling a fraction as he saw the black sheen curling over my shoulder. What happened? Alien, symbiote, I said, testing the word that had dropped into my mind along with Venom's name. It felt right, a shape it had always been. It bonded. It's talking. All Might's smile didn't falter, but his hands did that almost invisible flex they do before a fight. Are you in control? Venom tightened like a protective scarf, then whispered, we can pretend to be a scarf if it helps him relax. The mass slicked up my neck and molded into a high collar, matte black and vaguely tactical. The cheek. I'm okay, I said. It's loud, but Venom pasted a thought to mine like a sticky note. We prefer confident, but manageable. It wants to help. All Might took a breath that tried to be subtle. It wasn't. I will defer to your judgment, but we must set terms. Any power added to one for all must be bound by your heart, not the other way around. Agreed, I said quickly. We agree if it gets us chocolate, Venom muttered. Later, I whispered. All Might blinked. Later. Not you, I said. Them. It. The. Venom. A gull pecked at a chip bag near us. Venom's attention flicked toward it with embarrassing enthusiasm. Crunchy, it observed. Salty. Then, magnanimously, fine. Not people food. We are civilized. The living caller relaxed. All right, All Might said. Young Midoriya. We go to Principal Nezu and Mr. Aizawa. Transparent disclosure, medical checks, controlled conditions. If it's truly symbiotic, we can explore limits. If it's parasitic, I didn't let him finish. I won't let it hurt anyone. We will only hurt monsters, Venom said, and though it came out gruff, something like sincerity hung behind it. A distant crash cut across the beach, the kind of sound metal makes when gravity wins by a landslide. I turned. The last, massive half-shredded refrigerator mountain, a stubborn stack the city hadn't gotten to yet, shuddered. A teenage couple had picked the worst possible time to climb it for selfies. The base was sinking into a pool of soft sand. The top wobbled and leaned. All Might inhaled, but the lean turned into a fall before he could move. I was already running. Sand roared under my shoes. I didn't think, no plans, no lists, just the clean line from need to solution. One for all flared along my bones. I didn't push to 100 or 20. I set a number in my head, 8%, and my body obeyed. The symbiote surged with me. Yes, yes. Run fast, little lightning. It ripped across my limbs, shaping itself around joints and shins. Thin armor that flexed without pinching. The world sharpened. Grains of sand separated into 1,000 bright points. I could hear the couple's breath hitch, the metal whine. I planted and leapt. Venom anticipated. Tendril lines snapped out from my shoulders and hips, anchoring into the sinking scrap like grappling hooks. Not Blackwhip. Not mine. Ours. The tendrils stretched and pull. Said, living rope that bit the metal and held on. I swung up, hit the top of the sliding pile, and shoved. The mass under my skin thickened around my hands and braced my palms with a glossy black carapace. Metal screeched a protest, like it was offended we'd arrived without a permit. Jump, I told the couple. Now. They stared, frozen. Venom hummed, amused. Tiny deer. Car horns blared from the street. The pile lurched. I didn't wait. I threw 2 new tendrils that slung in AV behind the couple, scooped their waists, and yanked them into a short arc that dropped them into a safer pocket of sand. The tendrils retracted with a snap, as tidy as tape being rolled back into its case. And then the weight came down. I braced for the bone snap I'd known too many times. It didn't come. Venom flooded my shoulders and spine, layering shock-absorbing mass under my skin. The refrigerator leveled across my back like a horizontal car crash. Pain bloomed, bright and hot, but the kind that says, you'll be sore tomorrow, not, hospital now. I shoved, feet digging, and One for All roared. The pile tilted back just enough to roll off me and slide toward the water, hissing as it went. The couple scrambled to safety. One of them filmed me with shaking hands. I ignored it. Heroes keep moving until everything's quiet. I straightened slowly. Venom retreated from my cheeks, apparently it had crept up without me noticing. Blacking my face like war paint. It pulsed against my ribs with giddy pride. We were impressive, it said. We were helpful, I corrected, but I couldn't quite kill the small, stupid grin climbing my face. It felt good to save people without breaking myself to do it. All Might arrived in a gust of wind and concern. Incredible. Are you hurt? I rotated my shoulders. The living armor smoothed back into a collar. Bruised. My stomach twisted, sudden and sharp. And, very hungry. Venom perked. Snacks. Protein bar. I said. Chocolate. Protein bar covered in chocolate, I bargained. Compromise accepted. It sounded pleased in a way that made me think this thing had never had to compromise in its life. We did the picture with the couple, All Might's idea, Demag. E-control, and then he drove me to UA in his battered civilian form. In the passenger seat, Venom curled over my sternum like a dozing cat, but every few seconds it sent out a soft tactile ping, mapping the car interior, the traffic noise. Distant heartbeats. The world felt crowded, but not claustrophobic. More, known. Symbiotic organisms, All Might said, hands at 10 and 2, often reflect their host. Stay disciplined. And it will be disciplined. Lose yourself, and it'll lose us, I finished. The words tasted like old fear and brand new resolve. I'm not who I was at the start of training, All Might. I can do this. He glanced over, and for a second I saw it, the trust he'd always talked about, radiating like summer on cold skin. I believe you, young Midoriya. He paused. But we'll still have Aizawa glare at you for safety. Venom stirred. We do not like glares. We bite glares. No biting, I said aloud. All Might didn't ask. UA's medical wing smelled like antiseptic and paperwork. Recovery girl tutted over me, made me eat 2 protein bars, Venom purred, and took an unholy amount of blood while the symbiote played shy and thin, hiding in the hollow of my shoulder like a scarf fold. Aizawa arrived exactly as the last vial filled, hands in pockets, eyes saying prove you're safe louder than any quirk could. We went to a soundproof observation room. The lights were warm. Present Mike waved through the glass like his mere presence wasn't the equivalent of holding a grenade with a smile drawn on it. Principal Nezu sat on a stool with a cup of tea and an expressee. On that said every possible contingency had been gamed out 5 minutes ago. Midoriya, Aizawa said, voice flat. Explain. I did. The beach, the cylinder, the bond, the voice. Venom huffed at being called a voice. Then decided titles were snacks too and let it go. I left out the part where it had wanted to eat a seagull because we were building trust here. We'll need boundaries, Nezu said cheerfully. Which in Nezu speak means ironclad protocols or we leash you to a lab bench. Aizawa. Rules are simple, Aizawa said. No lethal force. No feeding on anything with a nervous system. If you feel control slipping, you signal, hand up, 2 fingers, like this. Present Mike gives you a low-dose sonic warning to force a break. If that doesn't work, we escalate to Endeavor's heat safely, then to total erase. He looked at me the way a winter sky looks at a field. Do you accept that risk? Venom bristled. We do not accept being burned. On my terms, I said, before the bristle turned into bravado. But yes, I want safety nets, not excuses. Aizawa's mouth twitched, approval or the memory of one. Good. Nezu sipped tea. There's also the matter of one for all. Kooky little quirk. So many tenants. The room tilted gently around me. The vestige world came like a wave, sudden and complete. The walls fell away, darkness stretched, silhouettes loomed. I knew those faces now, soft and grainy. Like photographs that had learned to breathe. Nana. The others. Even All Might, pale and new in that space, a candle stub still lit. Venom recoiled. Not from fear, more like a cat stepping into a room full of dogs and pretending it had meant to do that. What is this? Not yours. Not ours. Nana stepped forward in the not place. Her cape drifted in a breeze that didn't exist. It's a home, she said. For a power that remembers its people. Venom's edges fuzzed, uncertain. We only remember hunger. Then learn something better, she said, and smiled the way cliff faces smile when they decide you might survive the climb. If you're going to share this house, you follow its rules. I stood taller. 3 laws, I said, feeling them click into place like joints meant to meet. No lethal force. No consumption. Obey my command. Venom's silence turned heavy. Then, muttered, we do not obey. We agree. A pause, studying me through the dark. We agree because you are stubborn. And we like the spark. But if you break, we do what we must to keep you alive. I won't break, I said. It felt less like a promise and more like a decision I would keep making. The vestiges approved, warmth like hands near a fire. All Might's presence pulsed once, proud and aching. The space folded like paper, and I was back in the observation room, sweat cold on my neck, Venom knit tight around my collarbones. Aizawa had his capture weapon half raised, eyes red and ready. You went somewhere. Vestige realm, I said, concise as I could. Mature hero. We made a pact. Nezu's eyes gleamed. Marvelous. Present Mike lifted a small device like a wireless earbud. Test ping, he sang. Before I could consent, the room filled with a thin, pencil-fine squeal. Not loud, more like a thread of sound cutting through all the rest. Venom convulsed, not pain exactly, but a violent full-body no that jerked my shoulders. It withdrew from my forearms, skin prickling as it thinned. I put 2 fingers up without thinking. Aizawa clicked something, the sound died. I blew out a breath. Okay. That works. Not fun, but effective. We do not like him, Venom hissed, meaning present Mike. He is knives in our ears. Mike gave me a thumbs up through the glass. Knives, but with rhythm. Aizawa lowered his scarf an inch. Remember the signal. Remember the rules. I nodded. Venom sulked against my sternum. Then poked tenderly at the spot where my ribs had bruised under the fridge. Warmth spread. The ache dulled. Thank you, I murmured. You are ours, Venom said, simple and certain. We take care of ours. The door buzzed open. The meeting dissolved into measurements and release forms and recovery girls' sugar lecture. By the time the sun had dropped and the city lights came on, I had two new devices, a directional sonic ring that wouldn't fry my friends and a discrete temperature buzzer and orders to eat a full dinner. I stepped out into the evening with a stack of protein bars in my bag. And the weight of a new life under my skin. Venom stretched and yawned in a mental way, like flexing all the words it had learned that day, then picked one and nuzzled me with it. Hero, it said, tasting the syllable again. We can do that, but we still want chocolate. Deal, I said, and started walking. The city hummed around me, 1,000 little emergencies waiting their turn. I didn't have a list for them. I didn't need one. Somewhere across town, a siren cut off mid-wail. My earpiece crackled with a low-priority alert. A delivery truck stalled on a bridge, traffic building, tempers rising. Small problem. Perfect warm-up for a new partnership. I jogged, then ran, then let the tiger wake. Power thrummed. Venom laughed like thunder in a jar. We are not subtle, it said. No, I agreed, smiling into the wind. We're effective. We leapt into the night, two voices choosing the same direction, and for the first time since I'd grabbed that cylinder, we felt less like a warning and more like a promise. The morning of the UA entrance exam, Mom pressed a bento into my hands like it was a talisman. You're ready, she said, eyes shiny. Eat. And, be safe. I'll be safe, I promised. Under my hoodie, Venom stretched. Testing the fabric like a cat deciding whether to sleep or hunt. We choose both, it decided. Hunt first, then sleep. With chocolate. We'll see, I murmured, and kissed Mom's cheek. Outside. Winter sun flashed off the UA gates. The crowd flowed forward, hopeful, hungry, terrified in ways they would only admit to themselves later. I walked the line, breathing even. Letting one for all hum quiet and clean under my skin. No muttering, no lists. Just observation. A girl tripped on a crack ahead of me, tiny, gravity already halfway to winning. My hand shish. OT out before my brain filed the incident. I caught her wrist, steadying her gently. Big brown eyes, hair in a bob the color of warm bread. Her smile turned the cold down 10 degrees. Thanks, she said. I got excited. You know how it is. First test jitters, I said. Funny how my voice sounded calm when my heart was doing a sprint. Under my sleeve, Venom perked like a dog meeting someone interesting. We like this one, it confided. Small, round, shiny eyes. We protect. Please don't say that out loud, I whispered, then realized I had, and somehow she still only heard wind. I'm Ochako Uraraka, she said, bouncing once. Good luck. You too, I said, and meant it. From the other side of the gate, a snort. Bakugo stalked past, hands jammed in his pockets, eyes cutting me like shrapnel. He didn't shove me like the past, he didn't need to. The air around him did it for him. I held his glare. Venom leaned forward in my chest like it wanted to smell the ozone. Explody, it observed. We can bite the. No biting, I breathed. Bakugo scowled as if I'd said it to him. Maybe I had. The announcement hall was a sea of chairs and nerves. Present Mike's voice rolled over us like surf. Venom flinched, curling against my heart. Knives man, it grumbled. He is shaped like sound. We do not like shape. I clenched two fingers against my collarbone, the signal we'd agreed on, a remen. To breathe and not let the pitch unravel the bond. The discomfort sharpened my focus instead. On the screen, point values flashed. 1 pointers, 2 pointers, 3 pointers. A fourth silhouette loomed, no points assigned. 0 pointer, present Mike said, grinning. It's a trap. Don't waste time. Trap we would like to punch, Venom mused. We'll see, I said. We split into mock cities. The starting gate rattled. The boy to my left stretched his legs like springs, the girl to my right vibrated with some kind of speed quirk. I bounced once, shoulders light. Venom slicked thin over my arms and shins, a second skin. We can pretend to be sleeves now, it offered. Or scarf again. Scarves are dignified. You're perfect, I said, and meant it. The klaxon blared. The gate yawned. People hesitated for that half second that separates watchers from doers. I ran. The street swallowed me. Ruined blocks towered, facades cracked, alleys tight with shadow. The first one-pointer stomped out Rom behind a crushed sedan and raised a rotary saw. Venom flowed, tendrils flicked out from my back and anchored to a streetlight. I slid under the saw, planted a palm, Aegis armor thickening around it, and shoved. Metal screamed and flipped. I landed on the chassis and crisped 2 bolts with a controlled 5% burst. Machine death smell, ozone, oil, stale smoke, spooled into the cold air. We like these, Venom said, delighted. They bleed not. We can be messy. Not too messy, I said, landing and moving before the debris could be someone else's problem. No muttering. No catalog. Just action. I used tendrils like slings, like reins. Like a set of extra hands that knew what I meant before I finished meaning it. 2 pointers went down fast when I redirected their momentum with elastic grabs and spine-etching yanks. A 3-pointer tried to pin a blue-haired boy against a cracked wall. I didn't think. I whipped out 2 lines, tripped the bot, vaulted the boy free, and slammed a heel, armored and hungry, through the robot's neck joint. The head rolled, sparking. Thank you. Blue hair shouted. No problem, I said. Venom purred. We swept a block clean. I didn't chase points, I chased problems. People stuck under rubble. Examinees cornered by bad angles and worse luck. The scoreboard in my head, something I couldn't turn off, something that used to be fear, ran in the background like a heartbeat. It counted rescues as high value. Venom didn't argue. Good partner. A 2-pointer's chassis toppled onto a kid with pink dreads. I slid on my knees, Venom flooding my arms with dense mass. The weight hit, hard. Ribs complained. The symbiote murmured warmth against bone, blunting the pain. I lifted, the kid wriggled out, and I tossed the robot aside like a mattress I'd decided I didn't like. You okay? I asked. Pink dreads flashed me a thumbs up and bolted, probably already composing the story for later. I jogged on, breath even. My chest buzzed. Not panic, hunger. I fed it a GLU. Coast gel from my pocket while I sprinted between alleys. The taste was halfway between fruit and shame. Venom made appreciative noises anyway. Good host, it said between imaginary licks. We run better with sugar. Remember this always. I will, I said. It was surprising how easy it was to promise that. Minutes into the test, I felt the city shiver. Not an earthquake. A mood change. Birds took off. Windows trembled. Somewhere past the next block, the skyline shifted like a giant had changed its mind about gravity. Big one, Venom said, voice low and almost pleased. I turned the corner and nearly ran into the 0-pointer's ankle. Calling it an ankle felt generous. It was a wheeled mountain with delusions of being a leg. The robot's torso loomed a street away, shedding dust and concrete. As it shouldered through mock apartments, examinees scattered, yammering, point math erased by survival math. My legs tensed to sprint, to attack, to do something dramatic and probably not necessary, and Venom swelled in agreement. Imagining tearing plates free to see the shiny things underneath. Then I heard it. A small, scared, help. She was there, of course. Ochako lay half buried under a SL. Ab of concrete that must have slid after she dodged, one arm free, fingers reaching, jaw tight with pain. Everything else fell out of frame. I cut left. Hang on. I'm okay, she started, smiling automatically. Because some people have more courage than their tendons, my ankle. The 0-pointer's shadow crawled over us. Venom spilled from my shoulders to my back in a cape of mass that wanted to be wings. Its attention split, half savoring the prospect of a fight, half curling around the small, round, shiny-eyed human it had decided to protect. Ours, it said. Right, I said, breath steady. On 3, I lift. You float. Quote. She nodded, sweaty and brave. 3. I hooked my fingers under the slab. Aegis arm thickened. 1 for all flared, 8%, a number I could live with tomorrow. I lifted. The symbiote crawled under the concrete like ants, multiplying my leverage, biting into the stone's underbelly. Ochako tapped her fingers together, and the slab's weight ghosted away as her quirk took it. I shifted it aside. She pulled her leg free, gasping. The instant her fingers separated, gravity snapped back. Venom threw up a braced carapace between us and the falling mass. The SLA.B hammered the shield and split like stale bread. My knees bent, then straightened. Pain said hello, Venom said later, and smoothed the greeting down. The zero-pointer turned its giant idiot face toward us. As if to be sure we appreciated the scale of the problem. No points, I reminded myself, and the symbiote by extension. No snacks, Venom mourned. We don't need them. I hoisted Ochako into a fireman's carry. She made a surprised sound and then a determined one. Hold on. I sprinted. The robot rolled after some other cluster with louder screams. For once, being quiet paid off. We took an alley full of broken pipes and half a staircase and came out into sun and dust. I set Ochako down gently, tucked her injured ankle under my knee, and wrapped a quick elastic brace from A.S. Trip of venom that reformed when I let go. Her eyes widened at the little trick. Venom preened. Thank you, she said, earnest as oxygen. You're incredible. So are you, I said, and meant it. Quote, can you move if I make you weightless again? Yep, she breathed through the pain. All, float hop. Okay. I glanced at the clock visible on a far billboard. 2 minutes left. And that was WH. And the zero-pointer decided to remember us. The street shuddered as it rolled back into view, irritable that something had escaped it, maybe, or bored. Either way, it punched a fist into the building to our right. Because subtlety is not a virtue in machines the size of buildings. Debris avalanched. A doorframe 2 stories up peeled free and dragged a balcony with it. A boy with tape elbows flung strips at 2 others. Pinning them out of the way, but the falling mass didn't care about ingenuity. It came for all of us. I didn't think. I felt the solution arrive the way you feel a sneeze coming. Tethers, I said. And Venom was already there, 4 lines snapping up, biting into opposite buildings. I grabbed 2, planted, and pushed one for all through my legs. The tethers stretched, hummed, and then went hard as steel. The falling debris hit our living lattice and stopped, corded in a black web that flexed and held. Bio black, Venom started. Don't name it yet, I said, grinning despite dust in my teeth. We can gloat later. A wheel the size of my room rolled toward us. Points don't matter, I thought again. But people do. The wheel would crush the trapped ones I'd just saved, Earn them into a sad paragraph in the principal's speech. I let go of the tethers and ran at it. Yes, Venom breathed, delighted. Now we hit the snack. Not a snack, I said, half laugh, half prayer. I sprinted up a slab, vaulted, and landed on the wheel's inner rim. The world became a circle. Rubber burned. The wheel rotated and tried to throw me. Venom dug in, pouring mass into my boots, gripping like the world's angriest gecko. I braced my palms, aegis blooming. 8, I warned my bones. 10, Venom urged, hungry. 8, I repeated, and punched. 1 for all roared, not up, not out. But along a path I could see before I made it, a thin line that ran from knuckle to axle, a path I chose and the symbiote amplified. The shock moved like a thought. The wheel shuddered, bent, and jammed. The zero-pointer's momentum wrenching against itself. The whole robot pitched. I launched off, hit a lamppost hard enough to clang, and slid down, ribs yelling, Venom humming an apology for not making me invulnerable to pulls. The zero-pointer tipped into a building with a sound like a million coins spilling. Dust geysered. Present Mike's voice knifed the air. Time. The city exhaled in one relieved groan. Examinees collapsed against walls, counted bruises like beads, took selfies because youth is brave and weird. I helped Ochako to her feet and let her fingers float her weight for a few seconds at a time. You did great, I said. Do you need recovery, girl? I think so, she said, blushing for some reason that had nothing to do with her ankle. Thank you again. And, wow. That was, wow. Venom squirmed, pleased. She is shiny, it repeated, as if I might have missed that on the first pass. Present Mike's, good job, kids. Still stung like lemon on a paper cut, Venom huffed and de me, but when he turned the volume down to talk to me personally, it was almost mellow. Hey, Green Bean, he said, striking a pose he'd probably patented. Medical's that way. Nice restraint with the 0 point, points are fake. But squashed examinees are real. Noted, I said, and the old habit of taking out a notebook ghosted by and vanished. I didn't need ink to remember this. Recovery girl patched and scolded, in that order. The brace I'd spun from Venom melted back into me with a tidy little sip. Ochako stared, impressed and a little mystified. I almost explained, then didn't. Secrets are heavier when you hold them alone. Today, the weight felt shared. Good luck, she said again when we parted. I hope we both get in. We will, I said, as if I could decide that by tone alone. Venom made a noise like a satisfied purr. We like her faith. We want more. You'll get more when we deserve it, I said. Outside, the sun had shifted, turning UA's glass bright and blank as a future you haven't written yet. I sat on a low wall, ate Mom's bento. Venom gave a running commentary. Good rice, too many vegetables, where is the chocolate, and watched examinees trade stories. Across the courtyard, Bakugo stared at me long enough that it was almost a conversation. Pride and suspicion warred across his face. For once, he didn't look like he wanted to blow up the air between us. He looked like he wanted to understand it so he could blow it up more efficiently later. We should hiss at him, Venom suggested. We should nap, I countered, and stretched. A shadow fell over me. All Might, civilian thin. Leaned against the wall, the lines around his eyes kind. I saw the feed, he said softly. Rescue first instincts. Exactly what I hoped for. We're trying, I said, and felt the plural land clean. He followed my gaze to the horizon, where the city huddled under evening. The real test comes later. This was just the door. I know. I thought of the vestige space, of Nana's smile. Of Venom's growl turning into something you could almost call a laugh. We'll walk through it. We will run through it, Venom corrected, offended by understatement. All Might chuckled like he'd heard. Eat, rest, and tell your partner that chocolate is a sometimes food. Venom gasped, theatrically wounded. We do not accept this. We'll negotiate, I said, and All Might shook high. Head like mentors have been shaking their heads since time learned to walk. On the way home, I didn't list the robots I'd dropped or the seconds I'd saved. I kept my mouth shut and my mind clear. The power under my skin purred. The thing wrapped around my bones matched my breath without being asked. At a crosswalk, a scooter ran a light and nearly clipped a kid. My hand shot out, tendrils lashing. And I snagged the kid's backpack loop, pulling him back onto the curb. He yelped, then laughed. The scooter didn't even slow down. Careful, I said, gentle but firm. Thanks, mister. The kid chirped, which was frankly rude because I am not a mister. Venom swelled with self-satisfaction. We are good at this. Yeah, I said, feeling my mouth tilt up. We are. Above us, the sky softened from steel to plum. Somewhere out there, an acceptance letter was already looking for a stamp. Somewhere closer, Mom was setting out 2 plates because she'd heard "we" in my voice and decided it meant more food. I went home. We went home. And for the first time, the word didn't feel crowded. It felt right. The UA envelope felt heavier than paper should. Mom stared at it like it might explode confetti and a diploma simultaneously. I peeled it open with careful fingers. A tiny disc clinked into my palm and beamed a hologram onto the ceiling. All Might's face appeared larger than life and a little grainy. Venom fluffed under my skin like a cat seeing a laser dot. Tiny All Might in a plate, it whispered. We keep him. Video message, I murmured. Young Midoriya. Boomed ceiling Might. Congratulations. Mom shrieked and hugged me around the ribs. Venom caught my spine before my air left. The hologram explained points I didn't chase, rescues I didn't count, and a line about exemplary judgment under pressure. Venom preened. They noticed us. They noticed the we, I said, surprised by how right that felt in my mouth. Later, after tears and katsudon in a celebratory chocolate bar, don't tell Aizawa. I lay in the dark and let the symbiote breathe with me. The city hummed. UA loomed. The future felt like a ledge with a view. We jump, Venom decided. We jump smart, I corrected. Tomorrow is homeroom. We will sit on the very best chair and make it ours. That's not how chairs work. It is now, they said, satisfied. UA's halls smelled like new polish and old ambition. I found 1A's door. Took a breath because nostalgia loves dramatics, and slid it open. A room full of maybes and futures turned to look. Iida Tenya marched over like a polite tank. Good morning. I am. Iida, I said. Because he radiated Iida. Izuku Midoriya. He blinked, then nodded, resetting his glasses like he was filing me under, intense but friendly. Ochako waved from a desk near the window. Ankle-taped but bright-eyed. Bakugo slouched with calculated menace 3 rows back, arms crossed, looking like someone had asked him to smile for a passport photo. I sat. Venom tested the chair, then melted into a perfectly dignified scarf shape. We claim this throne, it informed me. It's a chair, I whispered. And we share. The door made a soft shff as if a snake had exhaled. A caterpillar of a sleeping bag slithered in, stopped, and unzipped. Aizawa Shota blinked at us like he resented light personally. If you're here to make friends, he said, rolling out of the bag and into a teacher. You can do that after school. Put these on. He tossed bundles of blue tracksuits. They hit faces, laps, desks. Venom caught ours before it landed, smug. Reflexes, they said. The locker room changed the smell from ambition to detergent. Venom liked the clean lines. I liked the precise seams of the fabric. We jogged to the training field, the morning crisp and almost kind. Quirk apprehension test. Aizawa said, deadpan enough to be a threat. No entrance ceremony. No time wasted. If we're judged on physical ability, Iida started, hand raised, then what about? That's how they did it in middle school. Aizawa's eyes were dry steel. You're in high school. Use your quirks. Across the class, relief and bravado shifted into competitive attention. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Tokiyami's shadow rippled like a lake in a wind. Aizawa turned to me and dropped a softball into my palm. You were quirkless, weren't you? Before. The ball felt warm from his hand. I have a quirk now. He watched my face, then my shoulders, then, without moving, my history. And something else. A small, quiet hum under my collarbone. He sees too much, Venom muttered. We bite the scarf. Don't bite the scarf, I said automatically. Aizawa's eyebrow twitched, which in his language is a question. I held up the ball. How far? Farther than middle school, he said, and stepped back. The class parted around me like a thought. Ochako mouthed, you got this, and somehow didn't explode into sparkles. Bakugo watched like a fuse. Somewhere behind the observation glass, present mic was a rumor. I rolled my wrist. Venom flowed to elbow, shoulder, wrist, knitting a slick undersleeve of mass that wanted to catch recoil before I felt it. One for all woke like AP. Olight thunderstorm in the distance, waiting for my call. I stepped into the circle, set my feet, and the world blurred. Not speed. Erasure. It felt like someone had opened a window and let all the warm out. The OFA hum dropped to a memory. My head snapped to the side. Aizawa's hair floated, scarf ghosting. Red eyes. Tired judgment. What now? He asked, and it wasn't cruel. It was honest. Venom bunched. We still have us. I know. I said aloud, not minding the weird looks. I flexed my fingers around the ball, felt the weight settle into tendons and intention, and threw. No OFA. No trick. Just a body that had been rebuilt by a power that remembered me even when it was asleep, and a partner that could distribute force like a net distributes water. Venom braced my elbow, spread across my forearm. Made my wrist a hinge wrapped in gel. The ball left my fingers with a pop and sailed clean. The distance wasn't obscene. It was honest. The reader on Aizawa's device pinged. 72.4 meters. Murmurs. Someone whistled. Bakugo snorted. Aizawa's eyes lost their dry burn. Power returned like warmth into cold fingers. He tossed the capture weapon back into place. Again, he said. With your quirk. I inhaled through my nose. Set the number I could live with tomorrow. 8%. Venom thickened along bone, blooming aegis along my forearm. I pulled and pushed at the same time, foot through hip, hip through shoulder. Shoulder through wrist, and let one for all thread that path. The ball left my hand with a sound that made the air wrinkle. It went up, then up again, cutting the blue. Like a line someone had drawn with conviction. The reader beeped. 812.6 meters. Ochako whooped. Iida made a noise like a fax machine having a good day. Bakugo's lip curled, respect and resentment in equal measures. Aizawa didn't smile, but the angle of his shoulders said I hadn't wasted his time. Good. Don't shatter yourself for spectacle, he said, too quietly for anyone else, maybe. I'm not impressed by broken students. Neither am I said. Venom, delighted, we are very impressed by us. Grip strength, Aizawa called, moving us along before triumph could become mood. We clustered around a device that had cracked more teenager delusions than it had grips. I wrapped my fingers around the handle. Venom wrapped with me, just enough. No showing off for the thrill. Controlled pressure. The needle jumped, squealed, and settled. 640 kilogram. Killer. Kirishima beamed, hair sharper than his grin. Manly. Venom nudged me. We like the spiky one. He is simple. Simple is relaxing. 50-meter dash. Someone hollered. And we lined up in pairs. I matched stride with Iida in lane 2. On your mark. Venom slid thin over my shins, calves, knees. A membrane teased between my arms like a biker's jacket imagining wings. Go. Iida exploded in a sprint that would make a breeze jealous. I didn't try to match him with raw leg churn. I let float flirt with gravity, just enough to ache ground friendlier, and Venom sheathed my feet so each step bounced instead of sank. I hit the line of breath behind Iida, lungs easy. The board read, 4.26 seconds. Iida glanced, startled, and then least, as if competition was a handshake. By the standing long jump, Venom had edited the suit itself, tiny ridges along my soles, flexing to grip, releasing to spring. I flew farther than I would have. Last month and landed without the knee groan I expected. Side steps, Aizawa droned. Sit-ups. Endurance. Don't puke on my field. Puke was avoided. Sweat happened. Jokes did, too. Zero taped cam. Inari when he got distracted by a butterfly. Ishido danced through the agility flags like the flags were flattered. Tokiyami moved with a grace that made shadows applaud. Dark Shadow peeked, saw Venom, and made a soft, curious sound like a friendly crow. Venom perked. Cousin. Different species, I said, doing push-ups. Same aesthetic. Bakugo's explosions crackled at the edge of my hearing like an angry summer. When our turn to face off came, sprints paired by random algorithm and bad luck, I saw the look on his face, the one that used to mean fire and cruelty, now refined into focus. We crouched. Countdown. Go. I didn't look at him, because you don't beat Bakugo by staring at his hands. You beat him by choosing a different race. Venom shifted my weight microseconds before each step. Corrected for the aftershock of his blasts, fed me tiny spurts of elastic recoil. He crossed first. A heartbeat later, I crossed second. He didn't gloat. He slowed, looked like he wanted to spit something poisonous. Then swallowed it and settled for a glare. We're not done, he said. We're not, I agreed. Venom hummed, pleased at the lack of hissing. By the time we circled back to the Throwy. In circle 4, one last skill of your choice, my shirt stuck to me and my brain had that post-run clarity where decisions come like smooth stones. Midoriya, Aizawa said. Demonstrate control. I nodded. Requesting low-level sonic ping, I said, pitching my voice toward the observation glass. Present Mike's silhouette saluted. The pencil-thin whine lanced the air. Venom seized, not pain, but an instinctive recoil like touching a hot doorknob. The mass withdrew from my forearms, cinched tight at my core, hissed in shapes only I heard. 2 fingers. Breathe. Count 4 in, 4 out. I chose that rectangle of calm and stood in it. Off, I said, and the sound cut. Venom oozed back with a trembling shiver. Hate that sound. I know, I exhaled, and stroked the idea of them in my head like a hand you can't see. You did good. Aizawa watched all of it with the focus of a surgeon. Then he said. Endeavor, who had apparently been enjoying the role of mobile furnace, stepped forward with a palm ember. The warmth pressed like a warning. Venom contracted, but didn't peel. Enough, I said when the tremble started. Endeavor killed the flame with a grunt that might have been respect or indigestion. And now, Aizawa said, show me how you break something without breaking yourself. I reached into that corridor inside where One for All lived, knocked politely, and took just enough. Venom layered aegis along my right arm, webs of mass distributing stress like a perfect suspension bridge. I flicked my finger. The shock snapped the ball into the sky with less spectacle than last time but more elegance. The reading blinked, 603.1 meters. Controlled. Repeatable. Aizawa's scarf rustled. Approval. Passable. For Aizawa, that was a standing ovation. He gathered us. When the sun started to tilt and our shadows grew honest. Results are ranked, he said. Last place will be expelled. Kaminari squeaked. Given a lecture about training smarter, Aizawa finished, monotone never breaking. Kaminari sagged like a relieved plant. It's a rational deception, he added, and somehow made that sound like the most responsible prank in history. Fear focuses the mind. Venom opened an eye that nobody could see and admired him. We like him now. He bites with words. Aizawa's gaze slid back to me. Come with me, he said. A dozen shoulders tightened. I followed. We didn't go far. Just to the edge of the field where the wind snagged at his scarf and the world smelled like grass and distant city. You're carrying an unknown, he said. No accusation. A statement. You made rules with it. Good. Make more. I've got 3, I said. No lethal force. No consumption. Obey my command. Add this, Aizawa said. No hero work without a fallback. Wear the ring. I touched the small, directional sonic band at my wrist. Support course's shy gift, approved by Nezu after a stack of forms that could have stopped a truck. Only aimed outward. Good. He studied my face. You did well today. That doesn't mean you'll do well tomorrow if you get complacent. The corners of his mouth moved almost imperceptibly. Don't get complacent. I won't, I said. Venom nudged my sternum. We will get chocolate. That's not complacency, I murmured. Aizawa's eye twitched again. Tell Present Mike to stop making that face in the booth, he said, as if this were connected, and turned away. On the walk back to the locker room, Tokiyami fell into step beside me, cloak dramatic and sincere. Dark Shadow peered out, shy but curious. Your partner is unusual, Tokiyami said. Voice grave enough to bury secrets safely. Yours too, I said. Dark Shadow waved. Venom waved back, shaping a little hand out of my shoulder that only we felt. The gesture made something inside me unclench. If you ever want to compare notes, Tokiyami said, on the line between light and appetite. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We will teach the cousin to hiss better, Venom decided. We'll teach control, I corrected, and Tokiyami nodded like he'd heard the shape of my thought. By the time I changed back into my uniform, the class felt less like a collection of strangers. And more like people I might run into for the rest of my life. Ochako's laugh. Ida's sharp edges worn friendly by intent. Kirishima's easy grin. Bakugo's silent storm. Todoroki's cool gaze, measuring without malice. Jiro tapping rhythms on her thigh. Yaoyorozu already planning a study group for a test we hadn't been assigned. We filed out into early afternoon. The sky was the kind blue that mocks promises you can't keep and hopes you can. I sent Mom a quick message, all good. Not expelled. Ate lunch. We'll eat dinner. Love you. Tell her we are hungry always, Venom advised. She knows, I said. On the train, I claimed a corner and let the motion carry the day through me. We were tired in a good way. The exhaustion that says your body did what it was built to do and your rules held under weight. At a stop near the river, a man in a suit stepped on, glanced at the crowded car, and shifted to stand closer to a woman than polite requires. She moved away, he followed, smiling a little too much. Not illegal. Not yet. Not okay. I stood. Moved. Not dramatic, just there, a new body in the space so the woman could breathe. The man blinked, miscalculated, and decided to find another car. The woman didn't look up. But her shoulders settled. Venom hummed, content. Small monsters, small bites. We prefer big monsters. But small monsters still need teeth. We don't bite them, I said. We use shape. Exactly. Home smelled like soy and ginger and warmth. Mom fussed my hair and pretended not to notice when the black shimmered along my collarbone. I pretended not to notice when she set a second bowl on the table without looking, like she'd been doing it since I was born. After dinner, I stepped onto the balcony. The city's lights were small galaxies. Venom stretched under my skin and looked with me. We did not eat anyone, they said, proud and a little surprised. We saved people, I said. The words sat clean. We obeyed your command. We obeyed our command too. What's our command? There was a thoughtful pause, like a creature learning a word by owning it. Protect. And chocolate. I laughed, quiet. In that order. In that order, they agreed, solemn as I've ever heard them. In the distance, sirens sang a different song than the mornings. Not panic. Not catastrophe. Just the normal chorus of a city that never stops needing hands. Tomorrow's rescue training, I said. USJ. We will not be subtle. No, I said, feeling the shape of the day to come settle into my bones. We will be ready. The class bus rattled like it had stories. Kirishima ran a commentary about hypothetical rockslides. Shiro tried to tape Kaminari's eyebrows for science. Iida lectured the concept of inside voices, until even his inside voice needed a nap. I watched the city peel away and let the motion smooth my edges. We are going to the place with fake disasters, Venom said, alert and eager. We approve of fake disasters. They make real hunger. Rescue training, I said. USJ. We will not be subtle. Venom promised, pleased with itself. The unforeseen simulation joint rose ahead like a glass seashell big enough to hide a storm. Inside, the air changed, cooler, drier, tinted with machine breath. 13 waited near a model city under a domed sky, glossy spacesuit reflecting our jittery faces. Aizawa stood a pace back, the human version of a warning label. Good morning, 13 said. Voice soft as foam over rocks. My quirk can destroy, but I am a rescue hero. Today, we practice using power carefully. Venom pressed against my ribs, listening. The small black hole person is dangerous. We will not get close enough to be spaghetti. I had the same thought, I murmured. 13 gestured toward whirling fans, a cracked earthquake, street, a flood pool. Remember, strength isn't always the solution. Judgment is. Judgment. I tasted the word and found it steady. The lights dimmed. Not a drill dip, an indrawn breath. In the atrium below, a purplish mist swirled like oil learning to stand. It coalesced into a man in a suit with a metal neck brace and a fog for a face. Shadows peeled themselves up into villains, dozens, then more, like the floor had a terrible idea and invited friends. 13 went taut without moving. Aizawa's scarf slid like a snake learning manners. Students, gather and, 13 began. The fog man drifted higher, voice smooth through static. Ah, All Might is not here. Pity. We brought something to kill him. My stomach sank. Venom surged, unconsciously forming a thin slope of mass along the floor under my shoes, ready to run built into my stance. Those are real villains, Iida said, strangling the obvious. Back to the entrance, Aizawa snapped. 13, guard them. All engage. You, engine boy, run to the gate. Get help. Iida hesitated, misery in his clarity. Then he clenched a fist and nodded. Aizawa stepped off the ledge and fell like a dare. He hit the lower deck, eyes red, scarf alive, and erase. D3 quirks before they realized they'd met gravity with personality. Fog voice rose toward us. Portal man, Venom said, distaste sharpening the thought. We do not like being chopped. Kurogiri, I heard someone whisper. Like the rumor had walked in. Scatter, Aizawa yelled. Kurogiri's mist ballooned, a dome that was not air, not water, not anything a body likes. It touched my ankle and the world became a smear. Venom screamed wordlessly and crushed tight against my core, anchoring to bone. Hold, they hissed, every part of them a grip. The smear stretched, then snapped. I landed on metal that rang and a smell that said algae and motor oil had gone to war and both lost. A boat. The flood zone. Cold air knitted itself into my throat. Midoriya. Tsuyu's voice. Relief flipped like a fish in my chest. She crouched by the rail, calm even with panic crackling the pool. Mineta clung to a bollard, every grape of his hair trying to desert his head. Villains ringed the water, fins cutting the surface. Eyes sharp with advantage. Some perched on crumbling faux piers, others clung to the sides of submerged cars. Water is not our best snack, Venom said, operating under stress and still snide. But we are not squishy. We can swim. Surface contact only, I said. We keep you dry. They flared thin over my skin, sealing at wrists and throat. I didn't feel pressure or drag when I moved. Just the draft of intent becoming action. One villain hurled a spear of water. Danger sense snapped. Venom popped a carapace disc along my cheek and shoulder. The spear smacked it, exploding into cold. Vision blurred. I blinked salt out and grinned because I had time to blink. They think they can pick us off, Mineta squeaked, voice vacuum-packed. They can't, I said. Tsuyu, can you get to the far mooring and cut the line? Quote. Ribbit, she said, affirmative, amused, and leapt, tongue lashing, body precise. I vaulted to the prow. Venom unrolled in 2 clean tendrils that sank needle tips into a rusted crane on shore. Elastic weight lined up in my muscles. 1 for all rows, 6%, today's number, and I slingshotted us across the pool. Tendrils twanged, we skimmed low, almost kissing the water. Villains rose like jagged thoughts. I landed on the closest pier fragment and shoved. Venom poured over my soles, stick slick, then released, propelling me light to the next surface. I treated the broken landscape like a map built for me. Keep them busy, I called to everyone. Mineta started flinging sticky balls like a terrified artillery unit, miraculously strategic. How? Dozen amphibious villains found their feet fused to deck plating, the others realized too late that the adhesive works underwater. Suyu's tongue flicked, snatched a falling examinee by the backpack, snapped them onto safer wood. Thanks. Ciro's voice, from somewhere, tape lines webbed 2 more villains mid-dive. On the far side, a tall man with gills drew breath. The water around his hands bulged. Big splash coming, Venom warned. Disperse, I yelled, and Suyu pulled Mineta behind a vent as the waves slammed the boat. We rode it. Venom spread as a brace, absorbing the hit, keeping my knees from kissing metal. Plan? Suyu asked, chin lifting toward the gill man, who was winding up for another. Disarm, I said. Then leave. Works for me, Suyu said, and leapt, fearless and perfect. I ran at the edge, jumped, and met Gill Man mid-gesture. He swung a trident that maybe belonged to a pool prop, maybe didn't. I slipped under it, Venom guiding my lean by half an inch, and tapped his inner elbow with 2 knuckles. Pain sang, his hand opened. The trident clattered, bounced once, then fell into the pool. He snarled. I smiled, because my body had finally learned it didn't have to break a thing to stop it. We could eat his, Venom started. No eating, I said, and headbutted the gill man's sternum with a padded crown of symbiote, just enough to fold him off the dock and NTO the adhesive field Mineta had created. He stuck, sputtering insults and pond water. A shock ran through the dome above us, invisible but felt, like a giant had plucked a harp string attached to the air. On the central plaza, something heavy hit something important. Screams turned into a single, terrible silence. Nomu, I breathed. I didn't know the name yet. Venom did. That is the snack, they said, growl low. Meat that walks wrong. We bite that. Aizawa. 13. My classmates. I glanced toward the boat, toward Suyu shepherding Mineta onto a retracted gangway. The exit tunnel shone bright beyond the flood zone. Go. I told them, and didn't argue with the part of me that wanted to stay and watch the water because it was safer. I'll make noise. Ribbit, Suyu said, eyes steady on mine. Don't die. I'll try not to, I said, and sprinted. The dome's curve funneled me toward the plaza. Villains poured in at the edges, some already limping from Aizawa's opening statement. Smoke drifted. Heat licked my face. In the cleared center, Aizawa sagged, goggles cracked, scarf ripped, still standing with the obnoxious dignity of a man who refuses to schedule his own funeral. Opposite him, a hand-obsessed man scratched his neck until skin bled. He stared at the entrance like a kid waiting for a parade he'd been promised. And beside him, hulking and bird-headed, a creature that made the room shrink. It flexed, muscle cords bulging under exposed seams and bluish flesh. Its brain pulsed outside its skull like a cruel afterthought. Nomu. A lab rumor made angry. Venom arched under my skin. Primal interest sharpening to a point. We rip that, they said. We rip and rip. 3 laws, I said, out loud because I needed to hear my own voice. No lethal force. No consumption. My call. The hand man, Shigaraki. My instinct supplied, borrowed from news scrolls and bad nights, crooked a finger at Kurogiri. Kill the eraser. If All Might won't come out, we'll break his toy to lure him. Kurogiri flowed, elegant and bored. A portal opened behind Aizawa, teeth of space clenching. A student, frantic, fearless, darted left. Iida. He sprinted for the entrance. Buy him time, I told my legs, and they agreed. I shot a tendril anchor high, swung across broken tiles, and landed between Aizawa and the portal with a skid. Venom snapped lines into the portal's edge. The lines spasmed, trying to exist in a place that didn't offer existence, then went taut, clinging to the singularity like climbers to a cliff. Kurogiri's fog head tilted. Interesting. He pulled. I held. The portal's mouth convulsed, caught in a net that wasn't in any textbook. Aizawa blinked and didn't waste the surprise. He body-checked a villain into the warped edge, knocking them senseless before the mist could digest them. Shigaraki noticed me like a cat notices a new fistful of yarn. He sauntered closer, head twitching small, jerky angles. 5 pale fingers flexed. His laugh was a sound with the texture of dust. "You're new," he sing-songed. "You smell like rotten lightning. Or you All Might's replacement toy. If I break you," does he cry. "We do not like him," Venom said, voice killing the joke. "Same," I said, and braced as Nomu turned. The creature moved like bad math, fast, heavier than anything that should be fast. It closed the distance with 3 ground-shaking steps. Aizawa kicked a villain aside and dove. I flung 2 tethers low at Nomu's ankles. They wrapped, strained, cut deep, and snapped, as if I'd tried to tie a storm. Nomu swept an arm. I jumped. It grazed me, just grazed, but the world flipped. Tiles shattered under my shoulder, Venom rushed there before pain could make me sloppy. "Up, now," they barked, and I obeyed, rolling to my feet as Nomu's shadow swallowed me again. Then light blew into the room like a second sun. "All Might," Shigaraki purred. "Have no fear," All Might said, striding into hell like he'd ordered it and it had arrived late. He took in the scene in one sweep. Aizawa. Bleeding but alive, 13, down but breathing, a scatter of kids trying to be walls. Villains, too many. Nomu, one too many. "Because I am," he began. Nomu hit him. The world bucked. All Might planted, grinned, and answered with a punch that turned air into sound. Nomu staggered a fraction. Shigaraki clapped like a child who'd found a bigger hammer. "We want to help," Venom said. Pacing inside my skin. "We bite the big one's joints. We chew. No lethal force," I said, and meant it even though my hands shook. But help doesn't always mean hitting the biggest thing. I looked sideways. Kurogiri angled toward Iida, who sprinted for the sealed entrance, engines whining, determination nailed to his spine. "Kurogiri!" Shigaraki snapped. "Stop the runner." "On it," Kurogiri said. Smooth as poured ink. I fired a tether and clipped it to a cracked pillar. As Kurogiri's mist yawned open in front of Iida, I yanked hard, swinging through the space between his body and his anchor. Venom flared. At the last meter, I flicked the directional sonic ring at my wrist and tapped it. A pencil-thin whisper of sound threaded the air, narrow, mean, precisely aimed. It hit Kurogiri's metal brace. For a blink, his mist hiccuped, the portal edges stuttering. He recoiled, not wounded, but startled, and the mouth closed like a door I wasn't ready to walk through. "Go!" I shouted. No time to be polite. Iida did, engines screaming victory. Shigaraki slashed furiously at his own neck, skin scratching off in snow. "That was rude," he hissed. "Kurogiri, kill that one." Kurogiri flowed toward me with an offended little bow. I stepped sideways, not challenging, just present. "You can't have him," I said, and was surprised at the calm in my voice. "We can have anyone," Kurogiri said. "We are inevitability. We are stubborn," I corrected, and fired 2 tendrils past his mist to hook into rebar under the tiles. I dove between portal edges again, tensing for the slice. Venom stretched into a thin skin-wear space bit, a sacrificial layer that came away smoking, then regenerated with a feral shiver. "Do not do that often," they cautioned, voice tight. "It tastes like broken." "Noted," I said. Across the plaza, All Might drove Nomu into the ground hard enough to make the dome cringe. It stood. All Might's smile thinned. He reached deeper. "Shock absorption," he said grimly. "To us or himself. Not invincible." Shigaraki stalked the rim of the fight, eyes glued to me when they weren't glued to All Might. "You're interesting," he said. "Like a puzzle with teeth. If I peel you, or you or more it. We peel him," Venom growled. "No," I said softly. "We save our teacher." Aizawa faltered, knees sagging. 2 villains surged with knives that screamed, opportunity. I moved. The world narrowed. 2 blades, 1 heartbeat, my path. I hit the first with a palm that turned his balance off, the second with a shoulder that taught his chin about floor. Venom formed braces exactly where my joints would have later complained. They didn't get the chance. "Stay down," I told them, and they listened to the combination of tone and a lack of functioning inner ear. All Might roared. Nomu roared back. The roars met and rattled my teeth. The dome did a noise that wasn't in any catalog of domes. Sirens. Not inside. Outside. Loud. Near. Iida had reached someone who could help. Shigaraki's pleasant facade cracked. He reached for Kurogiri. We're done, he said, petulant, dangerous. We lost surprise. We leave. Nomu hesitated, looking between All Might and the hand reaching for retreat. It made an unhappy gargle, then lumbered to Shigaraki's side like a loyal dog trained to bite cars. Next time, Shigaraki told All Might, finger tilting. We smash your symbol. And we peel the green one. He tipped his head at me, affectionate and wrong. You'll be fun. Get better hobbies, I said. Kurogiri opened a sheet of void. Shigaraki stepped backward, never taking his eyes from us. The last thing through the portal was his hand, waggling a goodbye shaped like threat. The dome exhaled. The alarms made the air taste like pennies. All Might stood in the crater he'd made, chest heaving, smile jagged but present. He looked at me across the ruin and made a tiny, private nod. Aizawa sat down without asking his legs. I went to him. Venom soothed my bruises while Recovery Girl scolded his broken ones. You disobeyed my order, Aizawa said, eyes a little unfocused. I prioritized delay and distraction to enable Iida's exit, I said, because it was true. Aizawa stared through me for a long second, then focused. Don't get used to being right, he muttered, which in his language is a gold star. Present Mike burst in with the first responders. Voice low for once, thank every god. You kids okay? He asked, then saw the gouge in my sleeve where the portal had chewed and winced. Yikes. Directional ring worked, I said, showing the little band. Only on the brace. Nice thinking, Mike said, then made the face Aizawa had preemptively told him to stop making. He stopped making it. Venom sagged as the adrenaline drained. A cat after the window show. We did not bite the big thing, they said, oddly proud. We wanted to. We remembered your rules. We obeyed our command. What's our command? I asked, out of habit now. Protect. And chocolate. You're a broken record, I said, and felt my mouth smile without my permission. We do not know what that means. But we agree. The police took statements that tasted like ash and metal. The medic stuck gauze where Venom had already made the pain polite. All Might turned back into a man and slipped into the tide of damage control like a veteran swimmer. On the bus home, nobody talked loud. Laughter came in stitches, then held. Tokiyami sat across from me, dark shadow curled small, thoughtful. The line held, he said, which was as close to, good job, as the night deserved. The line held. I agreed. Bakugo stared out the window, hands quiet, mouth a thin, uncertain piece of punctuation. He didn't look at me. He looked at the reflection of himself and found a question mark. Ochako dozed, head bumping the glass, breath fogging small circles. I watched the city roll by and let myself feel tired. We did not eat anyone today, Venom said, very softly. No, I said. We didn't. We saved people, they added, as if checking my math. Yeah, I said, and let my eyes close for a moment. We did. Outside, the dome receded into the city's geometry. Inside, the rules sat steady. Tomorrow would bring lectures and drills and headlines we didn't want. Tonight brought a simple certainty more filling than any applause. We were not subtle. We were ready. UA announced the sports festival 3 days after USJ, like a bandage you press down on a bruise to keep walking. Aizawa said it was political oxygen and necessary optics. Translated, show the world we're okay. We are more than okay, Venom decided, prowling under my skin. We are interesting. Try, reassuring, I said. And maybe, polite. We can pretend, they allowed. For the snacks. Buy, snacks. They meant applause and chocolate in equal measure. Before homeroom ended, Todoroki found me in the hallway. He stood too straight, ice cool and flame quiet, eyes unreadable and very awake. You're All Might's successor, he said without hello. I blinked. That's a rumor. It's accurate, he said, because he doesn't collect rumors without receipts. His gaze flicked to my sea. All are where black shimmer hid like a shadow that knew it was being polite. And you have something else. Also a rumor, I said, and smiled without teeth. He didn't smile back. I'm going to win, he said. Not unkindly, just geometrically precise. I'd like to see how you operate before then. Venom leaned toward him like a cat toward a cold window. He is winter and a match. We respect. We will not lick him. Good talk, I said. And watched him walk away, thinking about how to build trust in front of a stadium that breathes judgment. Festival Day turned UA into a living drum. The stadium throbbed with noise, fans, families, cameras, vendors selling takoyaki and cardboard hero masks. I could taste nerves in the air, salt and sugar, fear and hope. If the USJ had been a bad dream the city half woke from. This was the morning you decide to get out of bed anyway. We lined up behind the tunnel. Bakugo cracked his neck, eyes forward. Ochako bounced on her toes, Iida vibrated like a punctual hummingbird. I rolled my shoulders. Venom settled, sleek and steady, the way a coiled rope looks asleep. Midnight strutted into the sun, whipped the crowd into a manageable riot, and handed the mic to present Mike for Decibel Crimes. He turned himself down 2 clicks for once. Bless Aizawa. Welcome, everyone, to the UA SPORTSSSSS Festival. Mike boomed, and Venom flinched, then remembered polite and only grumbled. Parade time. We marched out to a wave that felt like weather. Names flashed, quirks chirped as pop-up graphics on the big screens. When, Izuku Midoriya quirk, one for all. Plus, fluttered above my head. The crowd whispered. Venom tucked in tighter, as if tidiness could be public relations. At Mike's center, Bakugo bowed, barely, and declared to the world, I'll beat every last one of you. The stadium booed and cheered in the exact ratio Bakugo prefers. Venom laughed. Brave mouse. Angry mouse. We keep him. You don't keep Bakugo, I said. You compete with him and try not to get concussed. Event 1, Obstacle Course. The gates yawned. Minefields glittered. Robots lurched. A fake ravine showed off its budget. Smintas scowled artistically from the sidelines. Go. Iida exploded. Todoroki iced half the field like a rude winter. Students scrambled. I vaulted. Venom fanned into thin membrane wings under my arms. Glide more than flight, silence more than spectacle. I snagged a lamppost with 2 living tethers, slingshotted past a 3-pointer, and let the bot be someone else's problem. A wall of ice climbed ahead, Todoroki's calling card. Examinees cursed, some climbed. Some slipped. I took a vertical alley, tendril anchors finding rebar in the cement. 2 hands, 2 lines, 1 breath. Float took just enough weight to make gravity negotiable. On the rim, a packed crowd surged. Minefield, Kaminari yelled cheerfully, and stepped on a mine. Boom. Dust. Laughter. People learned about blast radius and humility. Venom was very interested in the mines. Shiny discs that yell. It narrated. We approve. We do not lick them, I said. I watched where the dirt puffed, saw the timing, the rhythm. Mines don't care who you are, they care where you step. I ran like I'd studied the ground all my life, tendrils touching down ahead like fingertips testing water. When I couldn't step, I swung. When I couldn't swing, I skated on a wedge of hard Ned symbiote that slid over pressure plates without kissing them. 2 mines went off near me. Venom thickened over my calves, took the slap, dispersed it like a good mattress. I kept moving. Todoroki hit the tape first, efficient, clinical. I crossed second, sand in my teeth, grin loud. The camera found my face. I kept it soft. Rescue first, I mouthed. Let them write that lower third. Event 2, Cavalry Battle. Hatsume Mei. A pink-haired engine of pure invention announced as she vaulted onto my back like we'd planned this. I want the front seat to the weirdest quirk expression in the stadium. Not a quirk, I said. Biopolymer support gear, she corrected, already clipping genius onto my wrist. We are going to make ratings, Midoriya. Ochako slid to my right, Tokiyami to my left. Dark Shadow peeking like a polite specter. Team assembled. Gravity, Shadow, Chaos, and me. We good? I asked. Ribbit, Ochako said, which now meant yes in at least 5 languages. Tokiyami inclined his head. Grave as a funeral you walk out of stronger. Hatsume slapped a headset on me. Say hi to the sponsors, she whispered. Venom read the mic and made a tiny throat-clearing sound inside me. Hello, money, they purred. The horn blared. The field turned into swarming math. Teams crashed, halos of point values flashing over headbands. We didn't charge. We rotated, all anchors, no weak side, Dark Shadow guarding our rear. Ochako lightening our steps so we could sidestep charges like polite matadors. Hatsume fired a grappling hook that Venom improved mid-flight with a hardening sheath. It bit a banner pole. We swung up and over a scrum, stole a 10-point band from thin air, and waved thanks. Bakugo's team came in hot, explosions offsetting the calculus of pursuit. I called a cut left just as he guessed right. He snarled, appreciating the game even while hating the result. Todoroki's formation moved like chess, measured, precise, harvesting points without breaking sweat. We neigh. Veer offered him an angle big enough to exploit. When the timer screamed, we landed third, alive, intact, unsinged. Media lower third, lethal protector. The words trended so fast, they left skid marks. Aizawa's text buzzed my wrist, hate the name. I sent back, me too. Venom sent, we do not. It is accurate. We are cuddly knives. Event 3, one-on-ones. Brackets fell. I had Hitoshi Shinso first, sleepy-eyed, purple hair. A quirk like an internet warning label. I'd read him on TV, brainwashing triggered by response. Don't talk, I told myself. We will talk, Venom said, offended by implied silence. Please don't. Shinso climbed into the ring like someone late to a nap. Hey, he said pleasantly. Do you really think you deserve to be here more than the people you took points from? I smiled and said nothing. He rolled his eyes. Must be nice, he tried again, being gifted by God and goo. I held breath like a coin. He smirked. Is the monster bored in there? Tell it I have better stories than you. Rude puppet man, Venom growled, and I felt the reply bubble up. Don't, I whispered, and that was the answer. The fog rolled over my brain the way cheap anesthesia promises to. The stadium fell away. I was walking forward, gentled by someone else's will. Somewhere not here, the vestige world stirred, photographs breathing, a cape lifting, hands on an old wheel. Venom rammed into the fog like a dog hitting a glass door. No, they said, offended, and bit the leash. Pain snapped. The world slotted back. I stumbled and didn't overcorrect. Shinso blinked, shock killing his lazy. How? I didn't answer. I gripped his sleeve, gentle, firm, pivoted, and ushered him over the line like a kindergarten teacher convincing a kid to turn off a tablet. He stepped out before his brain caught up. Winner, Midoriya. Crowd confused, then cheering. Shinso stared, then laughed once, humorless and impressed. You're stubborn, he said softly. So are you, I said, meaning it. Come practice with us. Your quirk's a rescue weapon if you want it to be. He looked at me like he'd been offered a door he didn't know existed. Maybe, he said, like the word hurt less than never. Venom purred. We like him. He tried to steal us. He failed. We respect fails that learn. Matches blurred. Kirishima's grit, Kaminari's overheat, Jiro's rhythm, Siro's tape ballet, Mina's happy violence. Todoroki froze opponents with surgical ease. Bakugo detonated strategy into existence. I moved through my bracket with choices instead of force. And then, Todoroki. We bowed. The stadium held its breath. Endeavor burned in the stands, pride loud even in silence. Before we begin, Todoroki said, eyes direct, I want you to know I'm going to win using only my right side. No, I said, plain. A flicker, confusion, then annoyance. It's my choice. It is, I agreed. But make sure it's your choice. Not defiance by proxy. He flinched like the word had weight. The referee chopped a hand. Begin. Cold knifed the air. Venom shrank, edges stiffening. The field turned tundra. My breath fogged, my joints complained. The symbiote's mass slowed, elasticity dropping like a rock in syrup. Cold knives. Venom hissed. We do not like winter. We are sleepy. Wake, I said, and kept moving. I sidestepped the first ice wave, vaulted the second, took the third on a brace hardened like skate blade. My tethers sank into frozen walls and held like 9-inch nails. Use your left if you need to, I called, meaning make your own rules. He pretended not to hear me and built a palace of frost around both of us. Visibility shrank. I used what I had. Danger sense pinged. Venom threw pop-up plates where impact would land. I cut angles, shaved seconds, used float and micro poo. LSES to keep my feet light on slick surfaces. My knuckles ached with the want to punch. My brain denied them, said not yet. I saw an opening. I took it, 8% into Aegis arm, A straight that would ring ribs, not break them. Todoroki iced a shield up. I hit the edge and redirected mid-strike, sliding my palm to nudge instead of dent. He blinked. I grinned. We were talking in pushes now. He pushed back with a glacier. Venom groaned. Sleepy. So sleepy. Stay with me, I said out loud. I flexed my fingers. The directional sonic ring hummed at my wrist, not to be used on us. Stupid idea formed. I grabbed it by the tail. I aimed it at the ice floor, pulsed a tiny, calculated squeal. Not the symbiote killing pitch, a gentler tone. The ice micro-fractured in a web, sound spidering through solid. Todoroki's traction dipped. He adjusted instantly, eyes sharp. Clever. He threw shards like razors. I turned one with a wrist plate, another with a tether jab. A third nicked my cheek. Venom. Knitted that sting into a memory instead of blood. We traded. He built frostbite, I built patience. The stadium faded to a wind tunnel with a friend at the other end who didn't know he was a friend yet. Your choice, I said again. Voice white in cold air. Not your father's. His jaw tightened, the ice around his left hand steamed faintly where his skin tried not to split. He was hurting Hims. Elf for a principle that didn't give him anything back. He hesitated. The wind shifted. He'd licked the frost. Not a fire, just enough warmth to stop his fingers from breaking. The crowd gasped a lifetime of opinions. Endeavor roared. The noise didn't matter. Todoroki's eyes widened like he'd surprised himself. In that instant, his foot slid on the web I'd softened with sound. I saw it, the fall path, the head crack, the concussion. The regret. I stepped forward and caught him. We stumbled together to the ring's edge, momentum already making the decision for us. He grabbed my sleeve, I braced his back. Our combined weight tipped. The world slowed into a choice. I could wrench us inward with a tether and risk his knee. I could flip him and risk his head. Or I could let the energy travel the only safe route, out. My boots crossed the chalk first. The horn blared. The ref's flag chopped. Ring out. Winner, Todoroki Shoto. The stadium held its breath. Then it broke into something I didn't expect. A cheer that wasn't for victory or loss, but for how. Tokiyami bowed his head, dark shadow clapping politely. Ochako whooped like she'd won. Bakugo glowered in the comfortable way Yuji glare at someone who won't stop being inconveniently admirable. Todoroki looked at me like I'd handed him a mirror. Why? He asked, breath frosting between us. Because I'd rather lose a match than watch you break yourself to prove a point you didn't choose, I said simply. Decide on purpose, not against someone. Heat flickered, small as a candle in his left eye. I'll remember that, he said, and meant it. Venom snorted. We are good at public relations. Shut up, I whispered, and waved to the crowd like a person who knows this is not the last stage. Bakugo took the festival with a blast that rattled sponsorship banners. Cameras chased him. Interviews gnawed at him. He snarled, satisfied and unsatisfied, the way mountain lions probably feel about trophies. Reporters found me anyway. Midoriya. The living suit, dangerous. Safe. Are you a risk to the public? I looked straight at the lens. I'm a hero in training with a partner that follows a code, I said. No lethal force. No consumption. My call. Rescue first. I let the words be boring and clear. Aizawa would approve. He did, later, by not scolding me. On the walk back through tunnels that smelled like chalk and triumph and a little burnt rubber. Present Mike jogged up, hair too happy for physics. New nicknames trending, he sang. Lethal Protector. Aizawa, behind him, it's terrible. Venom, inside me, it is acceptable. I prefer, Deku. I said. We are Deku. Mike blinked, then grinned. We, I said, and that, too, was boring and clear. All Might waited near a stack of crates, a man again. Pride tucked into the corners of his eyes. You did what I hoped, he said softly. You made the crowd see a hero. Thanks, I said, suddenly shy. We tried. We want chocolate, Venom added, and All Might laughed like a sore chest feels after it stops hurting. Go home, he said. Eat, then rest. There will be more. He didn't have to add stain or news about a brother in Hosu or whispers about living weapons in the black market. The air already knew. On the train, the city rolled by like a tired river of light. Ochako texted a picture of our team huddled after the cavalry battle, flushed and grinning. Iida sent a timetable for celebratory studying. Tokiyami, unironically, sent a poem. Mom had made katsudon, 2 bowls. She didn't remark on the extra chopsticks. On the balcony, Venom stretched, sated and restless. The stadium's echo dwindled to a hum. Somewhere, news commentators debated our name. Somewhere else, a doctor with bad ethics held up a red, writhing sample and said, "Fascinating." We were polite. Venom said, surprised. We were ourselves, I said. Next, they asked, already hungry for movement. Internships, I said. And then, Hosu. The night was cold. Not knives, just note-taking weather. I didn't write anything down. I made a decision instead. We keep our rules, I told the city. We keep our command, Venom answered. Protect, I said. And chocolate, they finished. As the first star winked above the stadium's fading glow. Internship offers piled into our inboxes like sugar packets at a diner. Bakugo got a mountain. Todoroki, an iceberg. I got options. Some wanted the broadcast version of Lethal Protector, most wanted to see if the living suit was going to eat their furniture. Iida stared at his own list like it had insulted his family. Manuel's agency sat highlighted, bright and harmless. You'll learn traffic control, evacuation triage, hand signals, I said gently. He adjusted his glasses until they squeaked. I will learn to be useful, he said. Which is what you say when you're trying not to say I want revenge. Across the room, Venom peered out as a polite ripple at my collar. The engine boy is too tight. He is going to snap. I know, I murmured. All Might caught my eye after class. His smile was the kind that hides lectures and frosting. I've made a call, he said. An old friend can take you for a few days. He's unconventional. Venom perked. Snack. Mentor, I corrected. Gran Torino's apartment smelled like microwaved taiyaki and homicide. The old man played dead on the floor until I stepped over him. Then sprang up with the kind of bounce that makes chiropractors rich. Kid, he said, squinting up at me from 2 inches away. You brought a dog. Partner, I said. We don't bite. We sometimes bite, Venom told him cheerfully. Gran Torino laughed like squeaky chalk. Good. You'll need teeth. Show me 8% without turning into pudding. Training with him felt like being Tog. How to breathe by a gust of wind with opinions. We ricocheted off walls, we threaded OFA through lines I didn't know existed, we tested Venom's elasticity against G-force until my stomach protested and Venom protested louder. We do not like being a yo-yo, they announced after the third wall kiss. You love it, I said, grinning despite a bruise my ribs were composing poetry about. Gran Torin, tossed me a chocolate bar on the way out one morning. Payment, he said. Venom caught it mid-air from inside my sleeve. We respect the elder. We respect the elder, I echoed. The respect lasted until Hosu City burned. Manuel's team got caught in it first. Nomu swoops like rotten meteors, streets snarled, sirens whining like a city begging for a do-over. Iida peeled away from the safe plan like a strip of tape pulled too hard. I'm going, he said on a shaky group text. None of us were fast enough to stop. He's here. Stain. Videos in the dark corners of the internet. Philosophy dressed like rot. A man who believed the word hero should only fit throats that passed his blade. I didn't argue with the feeling that wrapped a cold hand around my spine. I grabbed my mask, texted Gran Torino, he swore and launched out a window like a very angry bird, and ran. Hosu's sky flickered orange like a warning label. The streets frothed with smoke, shouting, and the animal panic of too many cars in the wrong place. Manuel's team herded civilians the way you herd cats, with road cones and prayers. Iida, I gasped, skidding up to Manuel. Manuel's eyes flashed grief and command. He went off-grid. He's not answering. Kid, if you see him, I'll bring him back, I said, and meant it like oxygen. We hunt, Venom said. Not gleeful. Focused. Danger sense pinged in staccato bursts, a direction finder vibrating toward a narrow alley where the world refused to be loud. I slid down a stairwell that smelled like rust and bad secrets. Blood traced a line along the concrete like a signature with shaky penmanship. Stain stood in the space between flickering streetlight and shadow, posture devotional, blade low, eyes covered by a rag that didn't hide hunger. A pro-hero, native, lay slumped, bleeding but still breathing. Iida faced Stain with something shaped like rage pretending to be purpose. Move, Stain said, voice bright with certainty. You are fake. Iida trembled. You killed. I called. Stain corrected softly. For the sake of real. His blade darted. I moved. Venom moved faster. Ours, they said, and layered aegis over my shoulder as steel-kissed armor th a sound like a bell becoming a bruise. Sparks popped. Stain's head cocked, fascinated. New, he murmured. Not a hero. A beast that learned words. How quaint. Venom's temperature dropped. We will take his tongue. We'll take his knife, I said, and stepped between him and Iida. Midoriya, Iida croaked, shame souring his name. This is my. Not like this, I said without looking back. Not alone. Stain smiled with his teeth and his posture. The weak cling to each other. I'll purify both. He lunged. I didn't try to match speed with speed. I trusted the ping. Danger sense lit exact point his second blade would pivot to. Venom popped a micro shield there, angle pre-solved. Metal rang. I shifted, turned his wrist, felt tendon give a little. He flowed around the pain like he'd trained on it. And licked blood from his blade. The alley hiccuped. My muscles slackened like someone had swapped me out for overcooked noodles. Venom slammed against the paralysis with a feral snarl, mass locking to bone. No sleep. They wrapped my joints in raw will, ugly and effective. I stayed standing where I should have folded. Interesting, Stain said, delighted. You are not just meat. I'd already seen it, the quirk disguised as ritual, the tongue on steel, the way he tasted control like a sommelier. Blood types, I said through clenched teeth. Time limits. He grinned. You study. Useful. I flexed my fingers. Control leaked back in with a glitch. Venom shored it up. We moved. Stain sliced and slid, footwork neat as calligraphy. I met him with open hands, redirected, checked. Never gave him a clean drink. He cut my sleeve. Venom sealed the nick in a pulse, humming disapproval. Iida tried to charge. Stain used his momentum against him and laid him open along the forearm. Then licked the blade in a flourish like a prayer. Iida crumpled, body heavy and obedient to someone else's rule. Shame burned off him like heat. I'm sorry, he whispered, choking on it. Apologize later, I snapped. Breathe now. Something rustled above. Tokiyami dropped from a fire escape like a shadow come home, dark shadow unfurling, eyes on Stain with a predator's courtesy. You came, I said. Relief making my knees want to be unhelpful. Tokiyami inclined his head, cloak a night ripple. I dislike friends dying, he said simply. Stain's nostrils flared. Two beasts, he mused. One light tethered, one rot fed. Which one bites first? Venom bristled. We go for tendons. We make him pray for a new religion. I could feel it, the pull like undertow. Stain wasn't a Nomu, he was a man. Killing would be easy, tempting, and it would feel like proving something I didn't want to be true. The alley narrowed to the choice granularity of a moral razor. Nana, I said inside. Or maybe just thought at the place where decisions echo. The vestige space breathed to life, a quiet room behind the fight. The silhouettes gathered, All Might a stubborn candle, the other users a chorus of pressure and patience. Venom stood at the threshold, edges rough. He is a monster, they insisted. We end monsters. Heroes end threats, Nana said, voice like a hand on a shoulder. They don't feed. He will kill more. Venom argued, and I didn't miss the he, the human pronoun with teeth in it. He will, I said. Unless we stop him, not end him. Venom's shape flickered between spike and shield. We hate your rules. You agreed to them, I said. 3 laws. My call. Silence stretched. Then, like a muscle unclenching, we keep our word. The edges rounded, the heat turned to focus. The space folded. The alley snapped back, cool and loud. Tokiyami, I said, terse, all business now that the part of me that wanted blood was leashed. We're going to bind him. You parry his eyes. Dark shadow, push from angles. Don't let the blades touch you. Understood, he said, and dark shadow nodded like a dusk bird. Stain came, joy bright and wrong. I met him with tether vice, symbiotic cords that looked flimsy until they tightened like the universe finally remembering how to grip. He cut one, the fibers split with a sound like silk tearing, and found 3 more behind it. Tokiyami's timing was a poem with knives. Dark shadow's feints drew Stain's vision half a step away from inevitability. He darted left for the paralyzed lick. Venom poured a membrane over my forearm. A glove that turned his tongue's touch into harmless friction. He blinked, surprised, and paid for it with a twist to his wrist that sent one blade clattering. I stepped close, turned my shoulder, and slid the bio-black whip net over him, living mesh that flexed with his breath but refused to give traction. He strained, the web adjusted, he tried to roll, the web remembered and didn't let him. Stop, he hissed, voice cracking on the shape of it. Timer, I said to myself, to Venom, to the rule. The tether vise constricted just enough around his torso to make breath work. Not easy, oxygen deprivation is a warning, not a sentence. 10 seconds. 8, 6. Yield, I said. He smiled with blood in his teeth. No. Good, I said, and released the constrictor at 5, not 0. He sucked air like a drowning man. Control, not cruelty. Sirens, nearer. Endeavor's silhouette flared at the end of the alley, heat-like theology. Pros swarmed, the air changed from knife to net. Someone shouted my name. Native groaned awake, pulse sticky but present. Iida stared at his hands as sensation crept back in with pins that thought they were sermons. Midoriya, he whispered, gazing at the concrete like it had answers. If you hadn't. We had you, I said, which landed truer than comfort. Make your choice next time before the blade does. He flinched like I'd said his secret out loud. Maybe I had. Endeavor stomped into the alley like a furnace that had learned to swear. Fire heat prickled Venom, who shrank a fraction despite bravado. Too much sun, they complained. Endeavor's eyes took in webbing, knots, angles. And me standing with hands open, breathing steady. For a second, there was only the math of a pro assessing a scene. Then he nodded once, approving the geometry even if he didn't like the artist. Good capture, he grunted. No scorch marks. The police like that. Thanks, I said, because a win is a win. Stain coughed laughter, thin and pleased. You're better than I expected, he told me. You could be real. I am real, I said. You are a beast that refuses meat, he corrected. We'll see how long that lasts. Forever, I said, because you have to say it like you mean it or it doesn't mean anything. They hauled him out with care and cuffs and a dozen guns they didn't need but felt better holding. The alley exhaled. The smell of blood thinned. The city remembered its other emergencies. I turned to Iida. He wouldn't look up. The bandage on his arm was a white flag in a war he hadn't declared. You don't have to be your brother's sword, I said softly. You can be his legacy. There's a difference. He shut his eyes. When he opened them, the fury had cooled into something heavier and less likely to stab him from the inside. I will apologize, he said. First to you. Then to my classmates. Then to the civilians Manuel kept safe while he swallowed. While I left. That's a good order, I said. Keep it. Tokiyami stepped closer, cloak whispering. The shadow was tempted, he admitted, voice a shade lower. It wanted blood. It remembered the leash. Venom spread a little inside me and made the mental equivalent of an awkward thumbs up. Cousin did good. Dark Shadow grinned, fanged and shy. Cousin smells like chocolate, it confided. Venom preened. Obviously. Gran Torino found us 3 alleys later, grousing about kids. These days, while checking me for broken things with hands that knew how to find them. You didn't explode, he said grudgingly. You didn't break the beast. You didn't let it break you. Acceptable. High praise, I deadpanned. He flicked my forehead with terrifying accuracy. Don't get cocky. We are cocky adjacent, Venom said. Be humble adjacent, I said. The Hosu debrief lasted hours. And tasted like coffee I was too young for. The news ran Stain's arrest on loop with experts arguing whether the webbing was a quirk, a gadget, a miracle, or a problem. Someone in a studio said, vigilante. And Aizawa's glare through a screen made the host apologize to the concept of journalism. In the vestige space that night, Nana didn't speak. She just looked at me like a hurricane that had learned to be proud. Venom sat cross-legged, somehow, and stared at nothing, then at me. We wanted to end him. We did not. We hate you for making us better. I love you for agreeing, I said, and meant every word as weird as they were. They sniffed, then nudged me. Chocolate. Chocolate, I agreed. At home, Mom hugged me like she'd been holding her breath all day and finally remembered how lungs work. She didn't ask details. She made hot chocolate instead, which is a spell old as kitchens. Venom sighed contentedly, louder than the kettle. I texted Iida. Proud of you. Manuel's traffic cones are heroes, too. He replied after a long gap. Tomorrow. Apologies. Then training. Thank you. On the balcony, Hosu's smoke had faded to a bruise on the horizon. The city made its normal music again, tires, laughter. A siren that was probably not for me. Tokiyami's poem showed up on my phone, 3 lines, unironically excellent. I leaned on the rail. Venom leaned with me. We did not eat anyone, they said. Counting quietly for themselves. No, I said. We saved people. We obeyed our command, they added, almost reverent now. What is it? I asked, for the joy of hearing it again. Protect, they said. A beat. And chocolate. Always in that order, I said. Always in that order, they echoed, and for once, the hunger under the words sounded full. Sir Night Eye's agency smelled like lemon cleaner, crisp paper. And a joke waiting too long to be told. Posters of All Might lined the walls at ruler-straight intervals, every frame was level enough to shame a laser. This place is a trap, Venom decided. A clean trap. Mirio Tagata bounced out of a hallway like Sunshine learned parkour. Deku. Welcome. Don't mind Sir's face, he stores emotion in a vault and only withdraws it for tax season. Mirio, I said, already smiling. I brought us. Mirio's eyes flicked to the black ripple at my collar, and he grinned wider. Cool coat. He lowered his voice. Don't eat the filing cabinets. We make no promises, Venom said. Deeply offended by the implication and also intrigued by the idea of eating a filing cabinet. Sir Night Eye appeared with a clipboard, a stamp, and a silence that ironed the room. Tall, spectral, hair in a precise wave, eyes keen enough to shave with. He glanced at me, then at my collar. Back to me. Midoriya Izuku, he said, syllables arranged in width-perfect columns. Perform a task. You have 10 minutes to stamp the file on my desk. I will attempt to stop you. If, at any time, your partner defaults to brute force, the exercise ends and you leave. Mirio winced in solidarity. It's not personal, promise. He wants to play with rules, Venom purred. We have rules. We will win. I breathed. No muttering, no lists. Just the work. Begin, Night Eye said, and he didn't move, so the room did. A light shifted, the floor hummed. Hidden panels whispered open and let out slender foam darts tipped with paint, a party popper designed by a sadist. The first volley peppered my shoulder. Venom popped micro shields exactly where the darts would land. They thunked and dropped, defeated by geometry. Subtle, Night Eye said mildly. I'm trying, I said, and flowed left. Mirio laughed and vanished into the floor with a cheerful boop, which is not a sound people are supposed to make when phasing. A spring-loaded tripwire telescoped out. Danger sense pinged. I high-stepped over it and used a silent glide burst to skim under a swinging foam hammer shaped like All Might's haircut. Venom inhaled in delighted horror. He desecrates the hair idol. I think he'd be flattered, I said. Night Eye flicked a stapler. It ricocheted at a weird angle. I leaned half an inch. It kissed air and regretted being born. A scatter of marbles poured across the tile. I almost overcompensated, old instincts fishing for footing, but Venom spread a film under my soles thin as a thought and I slid through clean. In my periphery, a door cracked open with the sound of a permission slip being denied. A brief, pencil-thin whine lanced the room, Sir Sonic Pinger, low grade. Venom curled, displeased but steady. Knife sound, small. Acceptable annoyance. Desk in sight. 6 meters. 3. Mirio burst up with an apologetic grin, hands wide. I fainted right, he anticipated because of course he did. I tossed the stamp high. Venom flicked a tether, micro blackwhip, that SNA. PPED to the stamp midair and nudged its arc a hair. Night Eye smiled. It was like watching marble decide to be water. He stepped once, twist, pivot, and my tether's path was wrong by a whisper. The stamp fell toward the carpet. Venom hissed. No. I rolled, tapped the stamp against the file as it dropped past my hand, and let both fall. The thok of rubber meeting paper landed like a tiny victory trumpet. Silence. Night Eye lifted the file. The red oval was crisp and cocky. You have a tendency to overcorrect on left pivots when under sudden sonic stress, he said, as if that were hello. You fight your predictability with chaos. Today, you chose elegance. Acceptable. I breathed out. Venom preened. May I use my quirk? Sir asked, stepping closer. He meant foresight. Consent felt important. Yes, I said. He touched my shoulder, his irises flooded like ink in water. His gaze traveled past me, through me. Venom bristled, then held. He is looking inside the time where we might bite. Hold, I said, for both of us. A minute clicked. He released a breath that might have been relief disguised as disdain. You do not deviate from your 3 laws in the outcomes I checked, he said. Your partner negotiates, but holds. We like chocolate more now, Venom said aloud through me, which was not ideal. Night Eye's eyebrow raised half a millimeter. In his language, that was a laugh. Training at the agency wasn't spectacle. It was corrections. Night Eye filmed my footwork in slow motion and played it back with surgical patience. Your danger sense is not a substitute for observation. Your partner's reactivity is not a substitute for planning. Train the dull moments. We trained them. Mirio sparred me without touching me, he moved through the room like it was a suggestion. Venom learned not to panic when the world partially removed itself. When Mirio phased a fist toward my chest, stopped, and grinned, Venom did not bite the air. We hate him, Venom announced afterward. He is a whole person. You love him, I said. Obviously, Mirio said, passing with a thumbs up. Night Ops started on day 3. A tip had slouched into Night Eye's inbox, a broker in the NAR. Yuhata Gray Market Hawking, Alien Biomaterials. The word made my blood run cold and Venom's temperature do something I'd only call homesick if home had never been a place. We went light. No UA armbands. No capes. Just a city jacket. A mask, the ring tucked along my wrist, and Venom smoothed to matte black along the places cameras love. Sir shadowed on comms, Mirio flitted in reserve. I carried a chocolate bar because you don't argue with doctrine. Naruhata at midnight smelled like diesel and spicy ramen and the soft, tired rot of cardboard. The broker's shop had 2 fronts, a neon sign that said salvage and a metal door with absolutely not salvage written on the security camera angle. I slipped along the second. A man at a folding table counted pills into bags. Another man, long coat, in smile, opened a foam cooler to reveal vials. The liquid inside wasn't quite red and wasn't quite alive, the worst kind of almost. It twitched in a way my stomach recognized with dread. Venom went very still. Wrong. The thin man stroked a vial with 2 fingers like petting a dangerous cat. Scarlet polymer, he purred. Reactive to heat. The buyer loves that. What buyer? I asked the air, Sir's voice stayed calm in my ear. Keep listening. I told you, the broker said, nervous now. Cash first. No names. You don't pay me enough to get curious. A new voice drifted from the back hall. I like a draft you regret opening a window for. Curiosity is for cats, the voice said. A hand idled along the doorframe. Fingers, too many of them, flexed. Shigaraki didn't step into full view. He didn't have to. My skin recognized the wrong he wore like a coat. The shape of him was an insult. We hate him more in person, Venom said, very calm. I exhaled until the want to pounce left the room. We need proof, I whispered. Take it, Sir said. No engagements unless discovered. I counted hearts. 2 at the table, 1 in the hall, 1 behind me in the alley fiddling with a cigarette. Mirio's heartbeat drifted above us, 3 floors up, bored and ready. Now, I said, and we moved. Silent glide along the ceiling beam, footfalls swallowed, breath mapped. Venom threaded out too high. Our thin lines through the ventilation grate, dropped them behind the cooler's hinge like cat whiskers, and lifted. The lid rose 6 millimeters, enough for a phone to see, not enough for a human to believe. Photo. Timestamp. GPS. A sashimi slice of sonic chirp at the edge of hearing to garble the camera's night mode. The broker frowned into the distance but didn't look up. Shigaraki's hand petted the doorframe again. Chalk dusting the wood where his touch decayed patience for fun. Ask your questions, he told the men. I'm feeling generous. I'm good, the broker lied. We had what we needed. I shimmied backward along the beam and nearly smiled because I could feel Venom not lunging. Growth, measured in inches and unspent teeth. Back in the alley, a cigarette ember bobbed. The smoker exhaled. We done? He asked the knight. Not me. Yeah, I said, and caught his wrist before he could drop the butt. Please don't litter. He blinked at the disembodied hand of polite justice, and nodded. Sometimes hero work is that. Hands, not headlines. A minute later, we were on a roof, the city a bowl of listening light. Night Eye's voice crackled. Upload received. Authorities inbound. Withdraw. We did. 2 blocks away. Venom made a sound like a swallowed sob. Wrong, they said again, small. Not ours. Not anybody's. We will not reabsorb it. I wasn't going to ask you to, I said. It's tainted. They shivered across my shoulders, not fear, revulsion. We were made for hosts. Not jars. Not spectacle. If they make a baby from that, it will cry wrong. A wind slid cold across the roof. Then we stop them, I said. Before anyone tries to be mother. Mirio landed beside us like a friendly safe fell from a considerate height. You okay? We're not hungry, I said, which is becoming our version of no, really. He bumped my shoulder. You did good. Sir said so. He doesn't say it a lot, he usually folds the compliment into a spreadsheet. Night Eye arrived with a quiet that never felt like sneaking, just precision. He set a file on the roof ledge. You chose restraint when blood would have been faster, he said. That's harder. Remember, speed that arrives at the wrong outcome is not speed. I nodded. Sir, that sample, it reacts to heat. If someone wanted to breed it, they'd use flame, he finished. Or microwaves. We'll send the memo to people who get paid to say words like containment and incineration. Incineration is acceptable, Venom said, hushed. If it sings, we will not miss it. Sir glanced at my collar, and for a blink, the corner of his mouth softened. You two are an oddity, he said. Oddities tend to survive by writing better rules than the world gives them. Working on it, I said. Back at the agency, he made me watch our rooftop extraction footage 3 times. On the 4th, he muted it and drew a square on the screen around my face at the moment Shigaraki's voice slid through the door. You told your pupils to constrict, he said. So your partner wouldn't read your fear's permission. Good. He tapped the ring on my wrist. We'll recalibrate the sonic step to a narrower band. You were careful with Kurogiri. Be more careful here. Mirio collected a plate of taiyaki from somewhere. He flipped one at me. I caught it, Venom caught it again, we argued over whether to share. We did. Mostly. That night, on a tatami mat that tended to be cruel to backs but was secretly kind, I stared at the ceiling and let the day unspool. Venom sprawled inside me like an exhausted cat in the sun it swears it didn't chase. We did not punch the doorman, they said. Proud and a little sad. No, I said. We'll get our turn. We will not eat him either. No. A quiet beat. We still want to. I know. They pressed against my sternum. We hate being good sometimes. Me too, I said, and it felt like one of those truths you're allowed to tell only to things that live under your ribs. The vestige world opened like a yawn. Nana leaned on nothing, smiling the way cliffs do when they decide not to kill you. The older users murmured like paper in a library. Even All Might's candle flickered brighter. You're teaching it to choose, Nana said. We're teaching each other, I said. She nodded. Same thing. Before dawn, Sir pinged my phone. The broker's shipment was intercepted. He had already sold a portion to a client in a hand mask. The rest was headed to an itinerant doctor. A second message, 2 words, good work. I stared at those words longer than I should have. Approval is a dangerous drug when you grew up rationing it. Venom nudged me gently off the high. We still have training, they reminded, the closest thing to parental I have ever heard them sound. And breakfast. Breakfast is training, I said, and went to find eggs and the last chocolate bar we didn't deserve. We left the agency 2 days later standing a little straighter in places you can't see on cameras. Sir shook my hand with the faintest upward tilt at the corner of his mouth. Next time, he said, like a promise. Mirio bear hugged me, which made Venom squeak. Too much sun, they complained. And yet, warm. Stay weird, Mirio whispered in my ear. But, like, responsible weird. Always, I said. On the train back to UA, I watched the city unspool and didn't plan the forest training camp in a notebook I didn't carry anymore. I just listened to the rhythm under the tracks and matched my breath to it. Venom hummed. We smell the future. Smoky. I guessed. Burning, they said quietly. Blue. I felt it too, the shape of a trial we hadn't met yet. Heat singing a wrong note, something pulling at the edge of what we were, trying to make a baby from a scream. We'll hold the line, I said. Protect, they answered. And, I said, because some rituals keep you whole, chocolate. They sighed, theatrically. In that order. You said. Next. ChatGPT said. Thought for 42s. Chapter 8, Spawn of Heat. The mountain air outside. The training camp tasted like pine and ambition. Somewhere below the trees, a river argued with rocks. Somewhere above, clouds rehearsed for a storm that might not audition. The wild, wild pussycats lined us up with smiles that could scratch if you were careless. Pixie Bob pointed over the cliff like an excited meteorologist. Survival drop. Mandalay finger gunned. Make it back to camp by lunch. Tiger cracked his knuckles the way cliffs stretch. Ragdoll waved like she'd memorized every secret pathway in the forest and put little cat stickers on the dangerous parts. 4 cats, Venom observed, fascinated and wary. We do not get along with cats. You like Dark Shadow, I said. Dark Shadow is a cousin. Cats judge us. You kind of deserve it, I said, and stepped off the cliff. We fell into green. Branches blurred. Wind slapped. Venom threw out 2 neat tethers, kiss taps, we named them, each biting a trunk and peeling to slow us just enough. We hit a slope, skidded, bounced off a root, and landed upright in a rude bush. The bush lost the argument. Orientation achieved, I said, brushing off leaves. Snack denied, Venom sighed. Bush is not chocolate. The morning turned into problem sets with bugs. A ravine wanted a bridge. We braided 3 bio-blackwhip strands and slung a narrow walkway. A boar the size of a motorcycle blundered into our path. I diverted it with a sonora ping at ground level that made its hooves remember other plans. I ate mom's onigiri and a protein bar. Venom narrated opinions: rice good, seaweed insulting, chocolate required. We met Kota. On a rock above the river, a small figure with 2 big gloves and a stare that had learned how to fend off kindness with corners. He didn't like heroes. He didn't like us. Hi, I said, gentle as you talk to a startled animal. Do you? No, he said, and hopped down with the grace of a kid who knows how to navigate edges. He stomped away. The river took the rest of the conversation and threw it downstream. Small angry at son, Venom said, not unkindly. We'll try again, I said. On his terms. Training afternoons were deliberate misery. Tiger drove our bodies into the red and then made us color inside lines anyway. Power without precision is vandalism, he said, and I could hear Sir Night-Eye clapping politely in my head. I set percentages I could live with tomorrow. Venom added moss S to my shins and forearms, self-imposed weight suit, then peeled it away between sets so muscles had to remember speed and control. We practiced reactive carapace timing with Kaminari's taser hand lowest setting. Maze borrowed voltmeter scowled. Tokiyami and I built a choreography. Dark Shadow feints high, my tether snags low, we trade places, we never cross lines we can't redraw. It felt like writing a duet in a language none of us had words for yet. At night, under bug lamp halos and a sky that didn't care about our grades, we did the courage test. Flashlights in the trees, cheap jump scares courtesy of Mina's theater jeans. Zero dangling like a cheerful ghost. I was about to tell Venom not to hiss at a rubber bat when the forest inhaled wrong. He'd walked through the trees. It wasn't summer warmth or campfire patience. It was a note, high, clean, and mean, that made sap remember it could boil. Blue light ghosted through trunks. Fire that sings the wrong song, Venom breathed, suddenly very, very awake. Then the attack began. Mandalay's voice folded into our skulls with telepathy that didn't ask permission. This is not a drill. Evacuate civilians. Engage only to escape. Priority. Regroup. Screams fractured into orders. Cuts of light moved between trees. Twice's laugh folded in on itself somewhere north. A heavy bass thumped west muscular. My dread supplied, like a bad song you can't not recognize. Toga's giggle brushed a branch behind me, then wasn't behind me anymore. I moved before the trees remembered to sway. Venom flooded my calves, speed, not spectacle, and we cut for the river rock where Kota liked to pretend there weren't people. He was there. Of course he was, because the universe loves dramatic irony. Muscular was there, too. Towering. Veins and fibers. Braided across him like a red rope factory had learned resentment. Hey, kid, Muscular drawled, tone light, body all threat. Come watch the hero try. Kota froze, trying to be small enough to be invisible. I put myself between them and breathed until the number in my bones was honest. You picked the wrong river, I said. Muscular grinned like a bruise. We'll see. He moved like a truck that thinks it's a cheetah. Danger sense sang. Venom grew a shoulder plate and matched the hit with a perfect slant, force sliding off instead of in. Still hurt. I rode it. We traded. His quirk hardened to meet my improvements. Muscle cords layering. I shifted angles. Venom shaved microseconds off elbow recovery. Aegis arm turned my forearm into a battering ram that doesn't leave shrapnel. I kept him pointed away from Kota. The river barked at us to knock it off. Why won't you break? Muscular snarled, delighted and angry. Not in my job description, I said, and let Tether Vice wrap his knees. He tore the first set. I bullied 6 more into place. He tore those. I learned the rhythm and set 3 where his knees would be next. When he overcommitted, I used his momentum to make the river do the tackling. He went in with a splash shaped like hubris. I dragged him out, flipped him, and drove his face into a rock that had opinions about skulls. Non-lethal. Consciousness off. Everything else intact. Kota made a sound like a terrified ferret and then a different sound, the one that's half sob, half new math. I put a hand up without looking at him and said, "Stay behind me, because anything more would break the line." The forest tuned up the wrong note again. This time, it got louder. Blue Flame stepped out of the trees wearing Dabi's grin. "Evening, hero," he said, voice cool as stolen water. "We're shopping. You wouldn't have seen a Bakugo in your cart, would you? About this tall, explosions, unresolved issues. Sales closed," I said. Venom tried to stand taller than my skeleton allowed. "We burn," they whispered, steady in their fear. Dabi's wrists flicked and the air turned to alkali. Blue fire doesn't roar, it sings, eating oxygen like a hobby. I shoved a reactive carapace in front of Kota and spread low. Confident plates across my back. Dabi's first arc scythed chest high. I ducked into the dead zone and kept it there, pressing close where his flames couldn't build. He laughed, amused at the audacity. Then cheated. He snapped a tiny ignition by my ear, hot enough to remind the symbiote what it hates. Pain glassed the inside of my skin. Venom convulsed. Ever. Why thing after happened in heartbeats I still hate. To save my nerves and keep the bond from cooking, Venom sheared a piece of itself off, a sliver that took the heat with it, a living fuse ripped mid-burn. It splashed onto the forest floor, shrieking at a frequency that wasn't a sound so much as a decision. Heat soaked it. Blue turned it red. The sliver stood up. Wrong. Quick. Hungry. It looked teamy with no memory of pact or personhood, only the echo of appetite. Kota hid behind my leg, small hand fisting my pant cuff. "No," Venom said inside me, voice raw. The red spawn lunged. I tackled it mid-air, wrapped it in bio-blackwhip net that remembered our shape better than it remembered itself, and held. It bit the net, teeth that weren't teeth, screaming frustration and newness. Dabi tilted his head, fascinated like a child who has just found a magnifying glass in an anthill. "Now that is interesting," he said. "Back off," I snapped. He didn't. He threw a second wave of heat low to toast my ankles. I vaulted. Losing the ground I needed to pin the red thing. In that one misstep, a card trick arrived. Twice's mask grinned in the dark and produced a vacuum canister like a street magician. "Mr. Compress" flicked fingertips that swallowed light. Together, they scooped the spawn into a humming jar that sang at a frequency that made Venom flinch. "No," Venom repeated, quieter. "Ours." Toga tripped through a branch. Knife in a hand that thought it was a compliment. She sniffed the canister with rapture. "Can I taste it?" she chirped. Venom's response came out of my mouth at a base I didn't know I had. "No." Toga pouted, then smiled like maybe being told no was a love language. "Ah, protective. Cute." Dabi waved a lazy, blue hand. "We're done here. Playtime later. Kids, say thanks to your non-lethal babysitter." They withdrew under cover of their wrong music. The spawn's humming faded into pine and smoke and the ordinary cruelty of night. I stood there with the net in my hands and nothing in it. Kota tugged my sleeve. Is the bad man gone?" "For now," I said. My voice sounded like it had scraped itself on something sharp. "We're less," Venom whispered. "Not angry. Grieving. We cut ourselves to keep you. They took it. They will make it worse." We'll stop them, I said, which is a promise you make at the edge of things because not making it makes you smaller than you can accept. Mandalay's telepathy pressed soft against the inside of my skull. Students. Regroup. Evacuate to bus road. Protect civilians. Bakugo. A pause, like a breath that hurt. Bakugo may be targeted. I moved. Kota clung. I scooped him and ran. The forest turned into a maze of hot breath and cold choices. Spinner's blade hissed somewhere left. Magna's giggle hauled a chain across the ravine. Compressions popped like perverse fireworks. We swerved all of it. On the ridge above the bus road, I found Pixie Bob unconscious but breathing, Mandalay broadcasting through gritted teeth. Tiger New scolding a villain into a retreat. Ragdoll was missing, and that absence howled louder than any siren. Bakugo. I asked Mandalay. She flashed an image into my head, him blasting in the clearing, a marble swallowing light, Mr. Compress laughing in the only way he knew how, Tokiyami's shadow overstretched under moonlight. Go, she said, in my skull and in the air. We'll get the little one out. Kota had my sleeve. You can go, he said, voice trembling like a foal's legs deciding on standing. I'm okay. You're brave, I said. Be brave with Mandalay. Protect, Venom murmured. The word felt broken and still ours. I sprinted toward the clearing. Trees ran alongside like comrades. Twice as copies chittered and fell. A clone of Dobby crumbled into ash under my palm, twice as work. Fake heat, real nuisance. Then the real blue flame licked the sky in the distance where Kamino's smoke would one day draw a different map, and I knew the night had written a next page without asking us. The clearing was chaos carved into circles. Tokiyami's shadow had gone too big, a night tide swallowing, wanting. He wrestled it back with a grim poetry I wanted to applaud but didn't interrupt. Mr. Compress flung marbles like cruel candy. One glittered with a familiar explosion. I blasted it with a precise 6% united smash through Aegis' arm and popped it without popping the kid inside. Bakugo tumbled free, swore at gravity, and stood angry at the concept of being saved. Don't touch me, he snapped, pride and thanks tangled into something sharp. Then keep up, I said, and he did, because of course he did. Compress escaped with enough of his prizes to call it profit and a retreat. Toga vanished with her giggle and a smear of someone else's blood that wasn't mine. Dobby left a blue autograph on a tree and a promise I didn't want. We gathered at the road as engines cut the night. Aizawa's voice rasped orders the way winter draws lines. Vlad wrapped bandages with hands that tried not to shake. We were alive. We were not okay. They took Ragdoll. They took a piece of us. Back at camp, under fluorescent lights that made everyone ugly and honest, the debrief bled into triage. Shoji unrolled gauze like a mantra. Sato shoved sugar into anyone who looked like they might keel over. I gave a statement that tasted like ash. When the room emptied, Aizawa sat beside me on step outside the infirmary and didn't say anything for a while. Night bugs stitched the silence. Status, he said finally, soft. I touched the place under my sternum where Venom had curled into an ache. Present, I said. And, grieving. Aizawa's eyes drifted to the black line at my collar. You kept the rules. Mostly, I said. We bent them to keep me upright. Then you made the right choice, he said. He didn't ask if it hurt. His face said he knew. I let them take it, I said, the kind of confession you make to people who don't weaponize your honesty. You prioritized a chill. In your own integrity in a dynamic battlefield while facing multiple S-class adversaries, Aizawa said, dryness at half-mast. You didn't let anything. You survived a coward's trick. Now we make plans. Venom uncurled enough to whisper. We want it back. If we cannot have it, we want it gone. Clean. We'll do one, I promised. Then the other if we have to. Aizawa's phone buzzed. He checked it, jaw setting. Ragdoll's still missing, he said. I looked at the trees that knew more than they would tell. Then the League has her, I said. We'll find her, he said, and made it sound like a fact he intended to bully the world into accepting. A supply truck rumbled down the mountain with blankets and silence. Inside the infirmary, Kota slept fierce, fist still clenched around air he refused to give back. I stood in the doorway and watched him breathe until my own breath matched. We are less, Venom said again, almost a prayer. We are still we, I said. Just smaller. For now. They pressed against my heart. Protect. And, later, I said, not tonight. Not tonight, they agreed, and for the second time since Dagoba, the plural felt wounded and still unbroken. The fours. T hissed with the last of the blue flame's memory. Down in the city, someone shook a jar and laughed. Up on the mountain, a class leaned into each other like tents against weather. I closed my eyes and D made a decision that would carry into every fight after. When they tried to rip us apart again, we would be ready, not just to hold on, but to choose, together, what pieces we could never afford to lose. The smoke from the forest still clung to us days later, a smell you couldn't scrub out with showers or jokes. In the mirror, the black at my collar looked thinner, edges frayed in ways only I would notice. We are here, Venom kept saying, like it was rehearsing the fact. We are less. But we are here. I know, I said. We'll make less mean faster. Or smarter. And chocolate, it added by reflex, then didn't laugh. Uwa went into fortress mode. Police briefings replaced pep talks. Aizawa wrote protocols on a whiteboard so no one could pretend they hadn't heard them. Bonded students, he said. Looking at me like a winter star looks at a frozen field, stay paired with a pro at all times. No heroics. No solo hunts. I understand, I said. We do not understand, Venom muttered. We hunt together. Together. I agreed. With a net. Sir Night-Eye's message landed the next afternoon. Triangulated signal, Camino Ward. Attached. A heat map of warehouses and a tiny dot labeled red sample movement. A second line, possible host integration. A third, ragdoll, no location. And then, because he's human under the ruler straight, be careful. The raid assembled like a storm front. Top pros converged. Sirens, capital letters, lined streets. Smintos breathed buildings into braces. Best Genist ironed the skyline with cables. Endeavor burned like a sunrise that hadn't chosen mercy yet. Present Mike rolled his shoulders and tried not to look at me. Evac duty with me, Aizawa told me, tugging his scarf tight. His voice said no exceptions, his eyes said I trust you to break the right rules if you must. We cut the city into safe, then safer. Police barked orders, news choppers spun nervous circles, civilians poured down stairwells clutching pets and photo albums. My directional ring hummed against my wrist. Fresh calibrated by the support course to be as precise as a scalpel without being one. You ready? I asked the plural of us. We are not subtle, Venom said, and this time it landed like courage. Not comedy. The first Nomu hit the boulevard like a dropped generator. Panic knifed the air. Pros turned, efficient as math. Endeavor penned the brute in fences of controlled flame. Best Genist sutured an arm to a traffic light. I slung bio black whip nets over escape routes so crowds funneled past danger instead of into it. Present Mike pulsed a low band to herd everybody away from a collapsing facade without making symbiotes scream. He caught my eye through the dust and meowed smugly. I gave him a thumbs up. He preened. Then the street bent like a promise. Windows imploded in a line. Metal awnings curled. A pressure wave smoothed the air. A shape stepped from the mouth of a warehouse, wrongness wrapped in many quirks, moving like a thesis on cruelty. All for one didn't look like a person the way most people do. He looked like the idea of theft wearing a suit. Tubes fed into his neck brace, his headgear masked everything human. Kurogiri's fog peeled back around him like a curtain. Hello, children, he said, voice like a polite elevator sliding open to a nowhere floor. I've brought a toy for your dog. The toy pushed the sky down. It was Mew-shaped if someone had let Spite do the sculpting. Tied to its spine, a lattice of speakers, dishes, microwave coils, a shivering halo of metal and glass. In its flesh, veined like an infection, pulsed a red that sang a wrong lullaby. Havoc. Ours, Venom whispered, then flinched. Not ours. The rig thrummed. A pencil-fine shriek threaded the air, narrow, mean, tuned to me. Edges of the bond peeled, tender and furious. Venom clamped to my sternum, mass thin to the core. All units, hold. Aizawa barked. Do not engage Havoc up close. All Might arrived as if the word hero had decided to be a verb again. He blurred between us and all for one with a smile that was too sharp to be kind but too bright to be cruel. I am here, he said, and the city remembered how to exhale. AFO tilted his head. Grand. Let's tear a symbol. Havoc's rig whined higher. Venom quaked against bone, Reflex screamed run, training said choose. I pointed at the curb 50 meters back. Evac behind the bus line. I shouted. Mike, on me. Endeavor. Fence the flank. Present Mike blinked, read my mouth, and loped over. You sure about this, Green Bean? No, I said. Let's be right anyway. He grinned Lee. A man about to commit the exact right crime. Directional. Razor slice, I confirmed. Aim here. I tapped air 3 degrees above Havoc's shoulders. Shave the top of the rig, not the core. He breathed, tuned himself thinner than anger, and cut the sound like a wire. The top speakers shattered into rain. The pitch dipped. Venom unclenched a fraction. Better, they said, not happy, just able. All Might and AFO became a problem set too big for one brain. Blows made shockwaves. The air did math it could not solve. I ran rescue in the cracks, one old man lifted out of a car, one pro pulled out from under a ripped awning. 2 kids shooed into a laundromat because fate had decided to turn socks into shrapnel. Havoc chose me. Of course it did. It smelled me like a lighthouse. It galloped, speakers whining. Microwave dish glowing. I anchored 2 lines into concrete, skated sideways, and let it overshoot. It corrected mid-step. Smart. Or hungry. Endeavor. I called, and pointed instead of explaining. He arced heat not at Havoc but between us, a fence I could dance along and Havoc couldn't cross without cooking its precious rig. The thing shrieked, red veining pulsing faster, the jar song turned body song. It lunged. I juked. It clipped my shoulder and the world hit me in staccato, car, curb, signal post. Venom took the edges, the bruises arrived on schedule, I stood. Deku. Ochako's voice in my ear, she joined evac at my other 10 o'clock, or you. Fine, I said. Eyes up. Rocks fall. Rocks did fall. I shoved 2 people clear and slid under a sign like the only useful trash in a storm. Across the boulevard, AFO hooked his fingers and the street tried to break its own laws. Black tendrils of something like shadow and something like force clawed at All Might's ankles. He tore them free with a grunt and answered with a punch he'd let go of names for. AFO stumbled. The rig on Havoc's back screamed a harmony, a ripping chord that wasn't music. Then he pointed at me. Come, he said, and the air became a hand. It wasn't a portal. It was an instruction, layered across quirks that tugged at bonds and marrow and memory. Venom screamed no and flung mass at my bones. Anchoring everything to everything. The pull hurt in places I didn't have in middle school. The 3 laws rang like bells. Obey host. No consumption. No lethal force. Stay with me, I said. And grinned because my mouth didn't know how else to keep courage from leaking out. AFO turned his blank head toward All Might. Watch me tear your successor out of himself, he crooned. All Might's jaw set. He pushed through tendrils, rage, grief, too much love for one person to carry, and moved. I didn't wait to be prey. I moved. I ran at Havoc and let the pull drag my edges, on purpose, so I could choose how to come apart. Venom protested. I apologized, we did it anyway. I hit the rig at an angle that put my Aegis arm between dish and chest, heel sliding under a speaker brace. Present. Mike sliced another band of sound just above me, the top array popped like bad balloons. Endeavor fenced the flank tighter, he'd an inch from the limit we could stand. Now, I yelled to nobody and all of us. And fired tether vice into the pavement behind Havoc. The lines didn't try to pin its strength, they confused its balance. It tripped. I climbed its back like my body had ridden this move last night while I slept. The red inside it saw me, screamed like dry ice in a throat. We are hungry, it sang. We are you without rules. No, I said, and slammed the sonic step ring against the low. Our dish to send a narrow pitch through the rig into the red meat. Not the symbiote killer. The wake up. The one Sir and I had built for micro fractures and bad ideas. The red convulsed. In that tremor, I felt it, not a mind, an ache. Broken. Hot, alone, a voice with no words and all want. Not an enemy I could pardon. Not a child I could adopt. Just a fate I refused to let happen again. Sorry, I whispered, and fired United Delaware web smash through the rig. OFA flowed from heel to hip to spine to shoulder, down the living tethers threaded into the array, and detonated inside the machine like a thought made of thunder. The shock unstuck the red from the gear seams without shredding the host. The rig blew apart like a cheap secret. Havoc collapsed, twitching but not dead. AFO turned. Even his mask looked annoyed. Imitation, he said, is flattering. Thievery is divine. He reached again, this time at my quirk and the we that wrapped it. My vision widened. The vestige space burst open like a floodgate. We were inside and outside at once. The silhouettes gathered. Nana stepped forward, cape like a knight you want. All Might's candle burned staunch. The older users stood like doors unafraid of wind. Venom hunched at my shoulder in that knot place, edges raw, smaller than usual and angrier about it. He pulls, they growled, more wounded than furious. He says we are a coat. He takes coats. Then be a scar. Nana said. Be something that doesn't peel. AFO's presence pressed at the edge of the realm, a cold lawsuit filed against personhood. Give me the spark, he said, calm as robbery. You weren't meant to keep it. It wasn't meant to be yours, I said, just as calm. None of this was. He pulled. The world creaked. Venom could have slipped to avoid pain. It didn't. It spread, shield, not spear, and wrapped me. It took the worst of the instructions bite and bled it into the room like a mother eating the poison first. We are Deku, Venom hissed, and the vestiges lit up. Nana laughed. Joy like flint and flares. There it is. Outside, seconds had passed. Inside, I felt like I'd chosen a century. All Might surged. AFO shifted 5 quirks at once. Endeavor pinned fire to geometry. Present Mike sliced the next cord off Havoc's back. Best Genus threaded cables into architecture like sutures after a car crash. Aizawa erased at the exact moments that mattered, eyes burning like truth. I jumped off Havoc's spine and hit pavement that remembered my name. Mike, I barked, stabbing a finger where AFO had layered his pull. Cut there. He didn't ask. He twisted his sound into a wire and shaved space where the tug originated, wrong, elegant, blasphemous. The pressure on the bond dipped. I shoved both fingers in the wound and held. AFO looked my way. I felt the gaze mislike me personally. You are nuisance-shaped, he said. Practice, I said, breath steady. All Might. He didn't need me to finish. He already knew what a finish looks like. He gathered everything. His smile cracked into something that loved us too much to be gentle. He leapt, past fear, past cost, past history, past an entire childhood of being told nobody could, past a world that thought symbols were masks and forgot they're just faces deciding to be more. The United States of Smash hit like a verdict. The street caved. Air left the block. AFO met the ground and learned new theology. The rig screamed and then decided to be junk. Windows decided to admire the moment and fell inward in applause. The pull on the bond died. Silence, white and broken by sirens, fell heavy. All Might stood in the crater. Thin as a man who had used the last of a miracle to become human in public. He raised his arm anyway and pointed at the camera. At us. At me. At everybody. Next, he said. And the smile was a father's and a soldier's and a kid's who never stopped wanting to do the right thing even when it cost everything. Is your turn. The city understood and grieved in the same breath. People cried in the street. People cheered. People checked on strangers. People filmed with shaking hands and put their phones down halfway through because some moments don't fit screens. I climbed into the crater with legs that had opinions about weight. Venom pressed against my ribs, trembling, then steady. We did not break, they said, wonder in it. All Might, I said, throat tight. He looked at me with tired pride and a secret relief like a man who has finally set down a boulder. Young Midoriya, he said softly, voice blown thin. Good work. We were a nuisance, I said. He laughed once. And the sound gutted me. Perfect. AFO was hauled away inside too much weaponry and not enough forgiveness. Havoc lay bound in nets of cable and concrete, the red inside it quiet, no longer humming the note that made sap boil. Recovery teams moved like gratitude learning choreography. Aizawa found me on the boulevard's edge, sat without asking, and watched me breathe. You disobeyed. Evac only, in the exact way I anticipated, he said dryly. You told me to make more rules, I said. Rule. We break orders only when the math says our mistake saves lives. That's a bad rule, he said automatically. Then, after a beat, we'll work on the wording. Present Mike flopped down on my other side, hair somehow more vertical post-battle. You shaved my sound like it owed you money, he said, grinning, then sobered. You okay? He tried to do a thing to you. He did a thing to all of us, I said. We're okay. Venom nudged my sternum. We would like to sleep for 6 years. And then wake up and eat an entire candy aisle. Compromise, I said. Sleep 8 hours. Eat half a candy aisle. Counter-offer. 7 hours. 3/4 of aisle. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose like he could hear them. Maybe he could. UA will formalize bonded hero guidelines this week, he said. I want your input. Non-lethal protocols, selective sonic usage in public spaces, heat distance charts, consent pacts. I started, because the ideas had chewed through my skull for days. A training ladder for beasts that learned words. He nodded once. In public comms, he added. You'll talk. Clear, boring, responsible. My specialty, I said, and almost smiled. Ambulances screamed. Reporters angled. Civilians hugged people they didn't know because grief turns strangers into neighbors for about 7 hours and sometimes longer. Ochako texted you alive. And then good without waiting for my answer. Bakugo sent don't be dramatic, which is Katsuki for die later, idiot. Tokiyami simply, the line held. Back at UA, we filed past TV screens replaying a crater. Mom called and didn't speak for a full minute, then she spoke too fast and I listened too hard. When I hung up, Venom pressed against my heart. We chose you over power, they said, small. We will keep choosing. Same, I said. Night on the dorm roof smelled like concrete trying to be rain. I leaned on the railing. The city glowed like an apology. Venom stretched and yawned in mental space and finally, asked the old prayer. Protect. And chocolate, I said, because rituals keep you. In that order, they said. And for the first time since the forest, the hunger inside the words didn't sound lonely. It sounded like a promise we'd made to ourselves and meant to keep. The morning after Camino, the city looked like it had cried all night and then washed its face. News choppers traded altitude for angles, street sweepers whispered apologies to broken glass. UA moved us into the dorms with efficiency of a hospital and the gentleness of a family that doesn't want to call itself that. We are tired, Venom said, curling under my collarbone like a cat that insists it is a panther. We would like to hibernate inside a chocolate fountain. 2 hours sleep and a protein bar, I bargained, pulling on my uniform. There's a meeting. Unfair, they grumbled, and let me stand anyway. The meeting was half war council, half public health seminar. Principal Nezu sat at the head of the table with tea that could scald a ghost. Aizawa looked like sleep had tried to assassinate him and failed. Recovery girl clicked her tongue at the concept of children. Present Mike set his volume to church library. Mei Hatsume wheeled in a suitcase that rattled like a vending machine with an attitude. First order of business. Nezu chirped, bonded hero guidelines. Aizawa uncapped a marker. We publish this today, he said, so nobody, press, parents, pros, has to guess the rules. He wrote while he spoke. Clean block letters that turned caution into grammar. Non-lethal protocols only. Selective sonic, directional, consent, last resort. Heat, distance chart by device and quirk. Consent pact on file, host commands. Fallback plan, at least 2 counters on scene, sound, heat, erase. Public reporting, boring, clear, repeatable. Boring, clear, I echoed. We can do boring, Venom decided, as if discovering a new superpower. We will be terrifyingly responsible. Hatsume popped the suitcase. Responsibility, meet toys. She snapped a ring onto my wrist, sleeker, matte. With a tiny dial. Sonic Step version 2, tighter beam, less collateral. And, she held up what looked like a chunky belt buckle. Heat beeper. Goes off when ambient temperature hits the, your goo gets grumpy, threshold. It vibrates, I made it polite. Approved, recovery girl said, surprising me. Polite saves lives. Mike lifted a palm. I'll run certification for local precincts. If anyone's going to shave my sound like it owes them rent again, they're doing it by the book. We should write the book, I said. Aizawa nodded once. We are. Nezu tapped his mug, eyes bright. Public education matters. Midoriya, it will help if we speak. The word landed like a pebble in a pond, my chest rippled. We can. We are a very good, today, Venom said, pleased and mournful at the edges. The press conference happened under a sky that had remembered how to be blue. I stood behind a podium, Aizawa flanked, Nezu perched like a wise rumor, Mike frowned at his own mic until it understood its job. Good afternoon, I began. I'm a student hero in training. I'm also bonded to a symbiote. No nicknames. No performance. We work under a code. No lethal force. No consumption. I decide, so the public can hold me accountable. Cameras clicked. A reporter with a careful haircut raised a hand. What about the red incident at Camino? Containment is in progress, I said. When symbiotic tissue is weaponized, we treat it as a hazardous event. Directional sound to destabilize. Non-lethal separation. If it cannot be contained safely, incineration, under oversight. We do not like that word. Venom said, small but steady. I don't either, I said in my head. Then, aloud, the city deserves safety, not secrets. The questions kept coming. Are you safe around children? Yes. We live by rules. Can the symbiote take over? Only if I let it. I won't. Is chocolate really necessary? A pause. It helps. We have PR now, Venom purred, smug. We will autograph candy bars. After. Aizawa didn't say, good job. He said, you didn't make promises you can't keep, which is better. By afternoon, the guidelines doc hit every feed like a prescription. The comments were split between relief, fear, memes, and someone asking if my living jacket came in black. It does. It only comes in black. That evening, I took a detour to the hospital that smelled like citrus and hero laundry. I found All Might in a quiet room with the blinds drawn to nostalgic movie. He looked smaller without the world on his shoulders. He looked exactly as big. Young Midoriya, he said. Voice frayed from overuse and happiness. How's the partner? Present. Hungry. Polite. I swallowed the lump that wanted to be dramatic. You. He smiled like dusk after a hard day. And you were exactly who I hoped. Venom pressed against my ribs, shy. He is allowed to hug us. All Might opened his arms. We both stepped in. For a second, the room had everything it needed. On my way out, I almost ran into Endeavor in the hall, a furnace trying to be furniture. He grunted something between apology and move. The number one burned different in this light, edges rougher, heat trying to learn patience. Sir, I said, because respect costs nothing and sometimes buys a little. He glanced at my wrist. Your fence call was efficient, he said. Use it again, I'll be there. I will, I said. He nodded and stomped away, leaving a footprint you couldn't see. Back at the dorms, life reasserted itself in the stubborn way it does. Kirishima cannonballed optimism into every room. Ochako organized a chore wheel, for feelings. Iida apologized so earnestly to so many people that we had to assign breaks. Tokiyami found me on the roof with Dark Shadow perched like a story on his shoulder. The shadow remembers the blue, he said. Same, I said. Dark Shadow leaned forward. Cousin is thinner, it said, voice careful as finger painting. We are less, Venom admitted, not hiding. But we are still we. Tokiyami's eyes were dark and kind. Then we'll train to fill the shape with skill. We did. Night after night, we ran silent glide drills and traded places mid-stride. We practiced reactive carapace to Kaminari's lowest setting, which is a lie friends tell to each other with love. We learned how to talk in 3 syllables and a gesture. We learned when to saw. Why nothing and let a cousin read the room. 2 days later, our guidelines got their first test. Detective Tsukauchi's voice floated up from the comms room with the tone people use when they don't want to scare anyone and absolutely are. Hosu containment reports a breach attempt. Target. The Nomui labeled Havoc. Status. Stabilized, not separated. Translation. Aizawa said, scarf already in motion. They're trying to steal back the red. My heart found a new gear. Ours, Venom said, already a step ahead, already grieving and angry and ready. Nezu's ears twitched. We won't announce this. Fewer cameras, fewer targets. A small team. Midoriya, you're in, but you call nothing without 2 counters in place. We moved. Me. Aizawa. Present Mike. Endeavor. Best Genist. A cop car that had seen better tires. The city held its breath for the second time in a week. Hosu's holding facility looked like a gray idea and an apology. Inside, Havoc lay under a web of carbon fiber and ambition, the red inside quiet as a held note. A technician adjusted a dial with the reverence of a priest lighting the wrong candle. Perimeter intact, the chief said, which is the kind of sentence people say before something proves it isn't. The lights flickered. A dull thump trembled the floor. The main doors sighed the way doors sigh when no one has done anything wrong yet, and in walks the exception. Compress didn't monologue. He flicked his wrist and a section of wall folded into a marble. Twice's copies dove, a wave of, sorry. And knives. The room exploded in polite panic. Fence. I barked, ND Endeavor raised 3 clean bars of heat, corralling without cooking. Mike, top left, shave the rig if you see one. Genist, net. Aizawa's eyes flared. The red inside Havoc pulsed like a heart remembering it used to be a fire. We can settle it, Venom said. If we touch it first. If we speak the old song. Then we do it together, I said, and moved. Tether vice bit the ceiling. I dropped through a blur of dust and worse decisions. Landed on Havoc's shoulder, and pressed my palm to the place where, not skin, not machine, we would be if we were lost. Hey, I whispered, and Venom whispered me, 3 syllables built of memory and refusal. We are not alone. The red quivered, caught between heat and hunger, attention and ache. For a heartbeat, I felt a shape of wanting that hurt to know. Then Compress snapped his fingers. And the world tried to become smaller. A marble whooshed toward Havoc's chest. Best Genist's thread snapped, wrapped the marble midair, and tied it to the floor with a knot sailors use for storms. Present Mike sliced a line of sound that made Twice's copies shiver apart mid-apology. Aizawa erased at the exact second the red thought about learning the wrong trick again. The pulse dimmed. Now, Endeavor barked. I fired the sonic step into the red with the wake up, the same slender note Sir and I had tuned for mercy, not murder. The red slackened, not torn, just, released. Like a hand unclenching for the first time in weeks. Containment foam flowed, maze, non-choking marshmallow, and set in a hug that didn't kill. Recovery girl entered the word, say. Dation, into a ledger I never want to read. Compress flicked his wrist twice more and found nothing to pocket. He bowed with a flourish toward the cameras that weren't there and vanished into a door that tried not to exist. Secure. The chief exhaled. Good call, kids. Good call. It wasn't over. It never is. But in that room, for once, choice didn't have to bleed to count. On the way out, Mike elbowed me gently. You shaved my sound prettier this time. Practice, I said. Aizawa looked like he wanted to adopt and suspend me simultaneously. You followed the guidelines, he said. If you keep doing that, I can keep pretending I'm in charge. Deal, I said. Endeavor grunted. Fence worked, he added, which is his way of saying call me again. Best Genist patted Havoc's binding cables like a tailor approving a seam. Clean, he said. Society likes clean. Night broke into rain. It smelled like concrete finally finding the word it was reaching for. Back at UA, parents filled the auditorium with restless love. Nezu explained Risk like a bedtime story for adults. Aizawa glared parents into trusting us. I stood on stage and said the same boring, clear things while Venom hummed We Are Not Subtle like a lullaby. After, a small fist thumped my thigh in the hallway. Kota, hair still stubborn, eyes less armored, stood there with a paper bag. Mom said, he said, shoving it at me like a grenade. To give you this and not make it weird. Inside, chocolate. Good chocolate. Venom made a sound I will not transcribe because it will embarrass all of us. Ours, they whispered reverently. Thanks, I said. Throat tight. All, share. Kota rolled his eyes. No you won't, he said, and then, softer, thank you for not dying. I'll try that again tomorrow, I said. He nodded like a tiny adult and trotted away, pretending he hadn't looked back twice. That night, the dorm roof was a chapel for kids who don't sleep when the world is noisy. Bakugo appeared out of the dark like a swear word with legs. He stared at the campus lights until his jaw unclenched one notch. You did good, he said, like the words were made of gravel. You did better, I said. At Camino. At, not being taken. He snorted. I'm not portable. Silence found a spot between us and sat down. The wind tasted like rain and plan. He side-eyed my collar. Don't let it run you. It doesn't, I said. It wants to, he said. And that, somehow, was the most generous thing he could have said to me. I know how wanting feels. It wants to protect, I said. Sometimes too hard. I smiled without looking. I get it. He clicked his tongue. TCH. Nerd. He turned to go, then added, grudging, tell your goo, thanks. For Kamino. For not, you know. He is a mouse who knows fire, Venom said, oddly fond. We keep him. You don't keep Bakugo, I said. You survive him. We did. We would. Down in the city, containment teams finished paperwork that tasted like dust. Up at UA, Nezu emailed out a revised guideline with 3 new footnotes and 1 new sentence. We trust, until, asks us not to. In bed, between sleep and the place where decisions rehearse, I felt the hole where Red used to hum. It didn't ache as much. We were still less. We were still we. Protect, Venom said. And chocolate, I said. In that order, they answered, and the night finally let us rest. Hosu's Holdy. Ingwing looked like a hospital that had read too many legal memos. Havoc lay inside a carbon fiber cradle, sedated and humming at a frequency you felt more than heard. The red in its veins wasn't singing tonight. It was listening. Aizawa's scarf whispered as he checked the perimeter. We do this by the book, he said. Small team. 2 counters. Clear lines. Copy, Present Mike said, already massaging his own volume down to surgical. Endeavor stood at the far wall like a sunrise on a dimmer. Tokiyami's shadow peered from his shoulder, curious and wary. May's newest box sat in my palm, the M. Etronum, a haptic clicker synced to my ring so I could pulse microsonics on exact beats without thinking about it. If this blows up, May had said brightly, tell me which part so I can patent it. We do not like being the beta test. Venom muttered, then grudgingly adjusted around my wrist. But we approve of beeps. Nezu's voice came through the ceiling speaker, oddly gentle. We intercepted chatter. Someone will try to reclaim the red within the hour. If they can't reclaim, they'll ruin. Everyone breathe. I breathed. Venom matched. The room felt like a mouth closed on a secret. The lights flickered once, politely. Then the back wall folded into a marble and vanished. Mr. Compress tipped his hat with the same flourish you use for pickpockets and card tricks. Twice as copies spilled tea. Hero the gap like apologies with knives. Toga's knife glinted. Dabi's grin arrived before his heat. Aizawa's eyes went red. Quirks hiccuped. Present Mike shaved a line of air that made camera lenses go snowblind but left our ears intact. Endeavor fenced Dabi with heat lanes that said not this time in fluent geometry. Compress snapped his wrist for the prize. Best Genists cables, already 3A. Dead in the door rails, whipped tight and tied the marble gesture to the floor. Compress blinked, affronted by infrastructure. Now, Aizawa said, we moved. Not as heroes trying to be epic. As Technic. Ians who had practiced this exact bad moment for 6 days. I vaulted the cradle and planted a palm at Havoc's shoulder, the place where the red had stitched itself into tendon memory. The metronome ticked once against my skin. My sonic ring pinged a hair-fine wake into the red. Nothing like the killing pitch, everything like a knock on a locked door. Hey, I whispered. Venom whispered with me, syllables we'd built out of refusal and memory, we are not alone. The red quivered. It turned its attention. You could feel it, the ache of a want that had never been hugged by a rule. Dabi flicked heat low. Endeavor fenced him higher. Barred him left, made him choose boredom over murder. Present Mike shaved another hair off the room's background noise, keeping Venom's edges from rattling. 3 seconds. I told Aizawa without looking. He didn't argue, just stepped closer. 2 counters ready. We do not like this, Venom said, already bracing. We will do it anyway. I nodded to nothing and everything. On my mark, partial separation. Aizawa's eyes were on me now, not them. Your call, Midoriya. I exhaled. It was a small, stupid plan with stupidly good math. Mark. Venom peeled. Not all the way. Not the horrible, ripped feeling from Kamino. Just, slack. They untucked from my ribs in a controlled slide. My skin felt taller and lonelier. The red surged to fill the invitation like water finding a hole. We hate this, Venom hissed, and stayed near, thin around my heart, a seatbelt in a crash. The red reached. It touched my palm and found something it had been manufactured to crave, host. I let it put 1 foot on the threshold. The metronome ticked. My ring sang the wake again, this time braided with Venom's voice inside the vestige realm, our house. The door blew open. We were in the not place with the photographs that breathed. The vestiges lined the edges like doorways that had learned patience. Nana's cape stirred in a wind that didn't exist. All Might's candle burned steady. The older users stared at the red, no body, just a smear of appetite that wore my outline badly. Venom stood beside me, smaller than before the forest, still proud. No consumption, no killing. Obey host, they recited. Like law, the red writhed. Not language. Want. Offer, Nana said calmly. Not threat. I looked at the red and remembered the jar hum, the blue flame, the way it had screamed when it woke up wrong. You can be alive, I told it, we told it, because Venom had folded their voice into mine, but only if you learn. No. We protect, not feed. We stop, even when we want. We are not alone. The red pressed against the words like a dog against a fence. It didn't understand sentences. It understood temperance like an injury. It lunged. The court answered. The vestiges didn't smash it. They held it. The space itself turned into a soft vice, not a punishment, a cradle with boundaries. The red thrashed, then, just for a heartbeat, went still, like a feral animal are. Elizing the hand on its head isn't a trap. Choose, Venom said, quiet as dawn. Or go. The red quivered once, twice. Then it did exactly what it was built to do when denied a host, it left. Outside, 3 seconds ended. The red peeled off my palm like hot tape. Present Mike's sound shaved the retreat path clean so it couldn't splinter onto us. Endeavor's fence pushed the heat out of the air so the red couldn't root in it. Best Jeanist's cables, ever polite, scooped it into a canister lined with May's non-choking marshmallow and Sukauchi's signatures. Seal, Aizawa said, voice level. Thunk. Marker. Date. Oversight. Compress saw his prize boxed by boring people with rules and almost cried from aesthetic offense. He snapped twice more for dramatics and left with nothing but a flourish. D. Abby smirked like a scar you'll think about later and backed into the dark. Twice apologized to the ceiling and the floor as his copies evaporated. Toga dragged a knife along the wall with a sigh that suggested she'd make do with a diary. Silence fell into the cradle. Havoc twitched, once, free of the wrong hum. Its eyes, stitched white and empty by someone else's decisions, didn't focus. But its breath evened. The red stain in its veins dimmed to a dried memory. Containment complete, the chief said, voice cracking into relief. He sagged like paperwork had suddenly become delicious. Aizawa looked at me like winter that had decided to be proud. Good call, he said. Good team, I said, because the truth tastes best boring. Present Mike clapped my shoulder. 3-second haircut, he grinned. Fresh. Endeavor's grunt was, for him, practically a sonnet. Fence holds. Tokiyami nodded once, Dark Shadow offering Venom an awkward fist bump in the space we all agreed not to define. Cousin is, steadier, Dark Shadow said. Venom bumped back, shy. We are still less, they admitted. But we are not empty. Aizawa scribbled the simplest possible update onto the guidelines and texted the city, no unplanned separations. Planned separations is less than or equal to 3s, 2 counters present, vestige consent. Boring. Clear. Repeatable. Later, under a sky that had stopped pretending it was okay, Nezu brewed tea that could fix clocks. You made the heroic choice twice, he said, eyes soft and unfair. Once in a room that isn't. I had help, I said, which was the only sentence that felt like it could stand up. That night, in the dorm hall's quiet, I passed Bakugo leaning against a vending machine that owed him money. He didn't look at me. Heard you did the dumb thing, he said. Didn't die. Almost like I trained. I said. Don't get cocky, he muttered, which for him is affection with razors taken off. On the roof, the wind smelled like rain and clicked against the railing like a metronome. Venom stretched under my skin and yawned the way only something that lives in you can. The court has our words now, they said. We have theirs. We are, written. Code in ink, I said. In us, they corrected. A little proud, a little scared. We watched the city promise to break again and decided to keep showing up anyway. Somewhere far away, something pinged back, a call we couldn't quite hear yet. Like another symbiote clearing its throat. A season 2 problem. For now, we had sleep, a revised playbook, a class that wouldn't let anyone be alone with their mistakes, and a pap. Bag in my desk with coda scrawled on it in marker. Protect, Venom said, settling. And chocolate, I answered. Always in that order, they said, and, for the first time since the forest, that order felt effortless. The city settled into a new rhythm the week after the guidelines went public, quieter than the panic, louder than normal. You could feel it in the way crosswalk crowds held their breath when sirens wailed. Then exhaled when the lights passed on. People watched me a half-second longer on patrol and then decided, together, to get on with their day. We are a known quantity now, Venom said, half proud, half itchy. Known quantities are boring. Boring keeps people alive, I reminded them, and they made a harumphing sound that translated to fine. I carried the card Aizawa had M8 for me, Bonded Hero Guidelines, Field Edition. On the back, in his tidy block, if you think you're improvising, check the list again. I thumbed it like a worry stone. We were on a daylight patrol, me, Aizawa, and Tokiyami, when the subway screamed. It wasn't the brakes. It was fear amplified by tile and rumor. A push notification popped on my HUD from the station master. Medical emergency car 5, possible quirk event track 3. Aizawa didn't waste oxygen. Go. We dropped into the station like an apology. Commuters surged around us, eyes wide, phones held low. On the far platform, a car sat with its doors open and a good idea turned bad inside. A man on the floor, convulsing, a smear of red creeping from his collar to his jaw like a rash that had learned hunger. Ours, Venom said, flinching. Not ours. Security had done their best. Cleared half the car, kept the panicked from trampling the man, called everyone who could be called. A kid clung to a pole, crying into her backpack straps. A woman pressed her palms together like she could pray the stain away. Aizawa snapped his goggles down and erased everything dangerous looking. The red twitched, confused without heat or wings of stolen quirks to ride. 2 counters, I said, eyes already mapping. Sound and heat wedge. I rummaged in my pouch and pulled May's thermo bar, a narrow ceramic strip that could puff a precise 2 centimeters of warmth like a hair dryer with boundaries. Aizawa set his scarf in a soft perimeter. You call it, he said. No heroics. No grand gestures. Get him out. I knelt by the man. He moaned, eyes unfocused, breath hitching. The red crawled up his jaw toward his ear, pixelating into tiny searching mouths when it hit the cooler air. Sir, I said, voice steady like a bridge. You're having a reaction. We're going to help. Stay very still. He tried to nod. The red twitched like it thought that was consent. We hate this, Venom said, quietly. We can fix it. We can, I agreed. Together. Tokiyami slid into position behind me, cloak creating privacy in a place that had none. Dark shadow hovered, curious, protective. We have your back, Tokiyami said simply. I set the metro gnome against my wrist and dialed the ring to wake. Aizawa knelt to my right, eyes on the red. Every time its hunger remembered ambition, he blinked and took that memory away. Boring. Beautiful. On my mark, I said. Picking the line the day could handle. 2-second partial separation. Wake. Heat wedge. Rebond. We approve the verbs, Venom said, and braced. I exhaled and peeled. 2 seconds is not a long time. It felt like a cliff. The red felt the space and lunged, eager to be a sentence with a subject again. I pressed my palm to the man's jaw, metronome ticking once, the wake singing like a thread through cloth. The red turned toward the sound, attention hijacked, want interrupted. I slid the thermo bar between flesh and red, warmth just enough to make it let go of him and reach for me. Now, I said, and the bond came back home like a door in a storm. The red hit my palm, and found no purchase. Venom stood there, not as teeth, but as wall. No, they said, and the word had decades behind it, my mother's hands. All Might's smile, Nana's cape, a scarf that bites, a classroom that survived, a kid on a river rock. The red thrashed, once, twice, then went limp as a jellyfish denied the tide. Aizawa blinked. The last of its bad confidence burned away. I nudged it into May's little sample jar with a spatula designed for gross things we do not want on our gloves, sealed it, and handed it to a tech whose face looked like he'd just been given permission to keep existing. The man blinked, shuddered, and started crying in the messy, relieved way strangers do together. The kid let go of the pole and clapped. 2 brave pats. The woman with the prayer hands whispered, "Thank you," like a superstition she suddenly believed in again. I stood, knees wobbling just enough to be honest. Aizawa looked at me for a beat too long and then nodded. Tokiyami touched 2 fingers to the brim of an imaginary hat. Dark Shadow whispered to Venom, "Cousin, you held." "We held," Venom said, shy. Paramedics flowed in, practiced and calm. The crowd exhaled into applause that didn't feel like a performance, just a reflex the body has when threats shrink. Aizawa waved them off with his pen. "Move," he told me and Tokiyami. "Eat." We obeyed. In the service hallway that smelled like old oil and new coffee, I slumped on a crate and tore open a bar. Venom made a tiny, grateful sound that I pretended not to notice. "We did not eat anyone," they said. "Chocolate only," I said. "A good rule," they admitted. By evening, the clip hit the news with the kind of sober voiceover that means the city has decided to be a grown-up. No slow motion, no scary music. Just the move, the jar, the applause, the guidelines card blown up on screen. Present Mike texted a thumbs up, followed by a pelting of exclamation points and a reminder to hydrate. Endeavor's office sent a terse fence available 24/7 that read like proud if you squinted. In the Vestige realm that night, Nana didn't wait for me to find words. "You made the right small choice," she said, gentle. "Those are the real big ones." All Might's candle flickered fondly. The older users watched Venom as if they'd just noticed the shape of a thing that had decided to be something else. Venom shifted, uneasy. "We want to ask." Nana's eyebrow did something that might have been a hug. "Ask." "Write it," Venom said, the words slow like stones placed carefully. "Not just the 3 laws. The code. Make it ours. Make us accountable to the house so we cannot forget when we are hungry." The Vestiges considered. You could hear the creak of old oaths being taken off shelves, dusted, fitted to new shoulders. "Then say it," I told them. "And we'll sign." The court spoke, not like thunder, but like ink, each voice a line on a page you don't tear out. No lethal force. No consumption. Obey host command. Protect first. Seek consent when you can. Accept counters when you must. Choose again tomorrow. Venom straightened like a soldier learning to stand for the right thing. "We accept," they said. "We sign." The feeling of it, signing, wasn't a sound or a light. It was a pressure easing, a notch clicking, a door that had always rattled finally closing flush. The code wrote itself into us where the hunger used to echo. Not a muzzle. A map. "We are Deku," Venom said, and for the first time, it sounded like a name they'd given themselves. I woke up smiling into the pillow like an idiot. The next day bled into the next with the stubbornness of normal life. Study blocks. Patrols. Tokiyami's dry humor. Ochako dragging me to a ramen shop that served bowls big enough to drown exams in. Iida, earnest and new steady, organizing a class cleanup of the training field because order is how we say thank you. Kirishima declaring everything manly, and somehow making that mean kind. Jiro tapping rhythms on metal railings when she thought nobody was listening. Yaoyorozu printing hand warmers for everyone who pretended they weren't cold. Bakugo cornered me at the vending machines, stared like he was trying to look through my head, and grunted, "Saw the clip. Don't suck." "I'll aim for that," I said, which is how I accept respect now. He almost smiled and then remembered he had a brand to protect. TCH. News from the hospital hurt in the clean way. Honesty does. Ragdoll, alive, quirk, gone. We visited. She joked too hard and then stopped. Venom didn't speak. They just pressed warm against my ribs, apology shaped like presents. We left flowers that didn't fix anything and a card that didn't either and stood in the hallway after, angry at a world that takes. "We make fewer takes," Venom said. One at a time, I agreed. Aizawa found me on the roof that night, hands buried in pockets, eyes softer than he wants students to know. "Tomorrow. Provisional licenses," he said. "The test isn't the point. What you do after is." "I know," I said. He nodded once. "The city is watching. We keep being boring. We'll be artfully boring," I promised. He almost smiled. "Get some sleep." We did. We dreamed of nothing dramatic. The sound of a metronome, the feel of a pen on a page, the taste of cocoa powder. And it's too much and you pretend it isn't. Normal dream things. Morning brought a sky that didn't threaten anything, for once. On the walk to class, Kota's text pinged. Our teacher says chocolate is N. OT breakfast followed by I disagree followed by a photo of a paper bag with Deku scrawled on it in a child's capitals. I laughed out loud. Venom made a pleased little trill. Ours, they said. At homeroom. Aizawa doled out practice exam packets and deadpanned, try not to cry. He looked at me last. Midoriya, your speech to the city. Keep it short. Always, I said. The bell rang. The day started. 1,000 small emergencies lined up politely, waiting their turn to be solved by kids who were getting less like kids every time they chose the dull, correct thing over the sharp, impressive one. We walked into it together, me and a living shadow that had learned how to write rules inside itself and liked chocolate too much and loved better than it knew. Okay, I said to the world, to the class. To the part of me that still thought maybe we aren't enough and had decided to show up anyway. Protect, Venom said. And chocolate, I answered, because some prayers are scaffolding more than wishes. Always in that order. They echoed, and we stepped out into the hallway, boring, clear, responsible, ready for the next person who needed the kind of hero we decided to be. Thanks for watching guys. Hope you all are enjoyed this video. If you do please leave a like, share and subscribe, also don't forget to support author of this fanfic. So let's end this video here. Until then, see you in next video.